Now, happy Friday afternoon. Welcome to 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. That's Dan Lucero. That's Spencer Dupuis. 4 full hours of 580 Sports Talk today, and we have a whole lot to get to. Thank you so much for joining us, whether it's on 580 AM, 104.9 FM, online at 580WIBW.com, or on YouTube at 580 Sports Talk. We appreciate you joining us for the show today. Royals, after a day off yesterday, are back in action coming up tonight against the Baltimore Orioles. 6:40 first pitch, 6 o'clock pregame start time right here on your home for the Royals Radio Network, 580 WIBW. So we'll get you ready for some Royals baseball this weekend coming up here in just a few moments. Also in this opening hour of the show, we've got Change My Mind, and we'll talk a little Kansas State football. Some major transfer portal needs for K-State, specifically in one particular position group. We'll get to that at the bottom of this hour. Speaking of K-State, we'll talk to Tim Fitzgerald today. He'll join us at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. No show Wednesday, so Fitz was kind enough to be flexible and talk to us today on the program. He's not our only guest. Matt Derrick will join us bottom of the 3 o'clock hour for our Chiefs Insider. Lots of Chiefs to get to today. We'll also hear from Brett Veach. He had his pre-draft press conference today, so we'll hear some of the highlights from that. Also, we will get to the latest from the draft rumor mill, a little fun with last year's draft in retrospect, and some other notes from around the draft, including some juicy reports about two other teams in the Chiefs division. We'll get to that. We've got our playoff roundup coming up during headlines today. We'll pick a weekly winner in What Is Wrong With You. We also have On Second Thought, Change My Mind, all coming up today on 580 Sports Talk. You know the drill. You can join in and be a part of the show on the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429, or you can leave us a comment on the YouTube stream. Again, our YouTube channel called 580 Sports Talk. Go subscribe if you have not already. Just go to youtube.com, search 580 Sports Talk. That's the easiest way to find the show. Before we get to Royals baseball, we've got your first keyword of the day for the Alpha Media Choose Your Trip contest. If you haven't been paying attention the last 2 weeks, head to 580WIBW.com. Click on the Choose Your Trip link. It's right in the center of the homepage. Scroll down just a tiny little bit, and then you have to enter this keyword. You'll be entered to win a trip to anywhere you want to go, courtesy of Alpha Media. Your keyword for the 2 o'clock hour is good. G-O-O-D. Good.
I'm glad it's a good keyword. Now, what is it?
Ha 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 ha. Very funny. Abbott or Costello, whichever one you'd prefer to be. That is your keyword, good, for the 2 o'clock hour. It is only active until 3 o'clock. Right when it turns to 3 o'clock on the dot, we will have a new keyword for you. We'll tell you that one at the top of the 3 o'clock hour today. Royals Orioles coming up this weekend. The Royals 12-7 going into this series. And if you break that all down, 6-1 against the Chicago White Sox, who stink, suck.
That seems like an expected outcome.
They're ass, my dude. That's another way you could put it. They're 6-6 against everyone else. I will be completely honest with you. If you extrapolated that over the rest of the regular season and the Royals went, how many do they play against the division now? 13?
Yeah, 13.
So if they went, 11-2 against the White Sox and 500 against everybody else?
That might win the division.
That will win the division, I think. I think Cleveland's going to tick back down to earth a little bit at some point. That would win the division. That's a playoff team right there. That would be remarkable. So I'm certainly not going to complain about being 6-6 against the rest of Major League Baseball right now. That's way better than I thought this Royals team would be.
Right? Like, we're still talking about strides forward being made by a team that's kind of what we were hoping for. I would say it was expected that this team would be better than the mess that was last year's. And I think now we're sort of, there have been early signs that it might be, in fact, substantially better than last year's team. And so, again, still early. We're halfway with tonight's game, halfway to Dayton Moore's 40-game mark, where you start to have a little bit more of a defined idea of what a team is. But worth noting also that 6-6 against everyone else includes 1-2 against Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the second series of the season. It was in Baltimore. And the Royals were either leading or tied in the 8th inning of all 3 of those games, and they lost 2 of them. That was a tough series. They won the second game. I wouldn't say commandingly, but they won the second game. They took care of business, and then they lost the opener on the Westberg home run. And that was the tie game. They jumped out early, led that game 3-0, ended up losing that game in the 9th after they had tied it in the top half, and then had the 3-0 lead into the 8th in the rubber game. And a cast of characters came out of the bullpen to blow that one to smithereens with Will Smith blowing the save in the 9th, or losing the game in the 9th inning. So obviously, it would be nice if the rest of the schedule were just White Sox games all the way down, but the Royals are going to have to beat good teams if they are themselves to be considered good. And that's why this weekend series is so interesting, because obviously we're not that deep into the season yet, if you really think about it. We're the 20-game mark. We are an 1/8 of the way into the season, essentially. It's 12.5% of the way into this thing. We're still so early in this. But that doesn't mean that there aren't some early season series that have a little bit of juice, have a little bit of buzz, have a little bit of intrigue. And this, I think, is the first real opportunity to see, all right, let's see what the Royals are made of. Let's see this group show us what they're made of. They're at home. There's a little excitement around the team. I don't know that the weather's going to be outstanding. It's not going to be like postcard perfect June, July weather, but there should be good crowds at the K this weekend. You've got a bona fide marquee pitching matchup on Saturday with Cole Reagans going up against former Cy Young winner Corbin Burns. This should be a really fun weekend of baseball. And I think if the Royals can win this series this weekend, it would, again, we don't want to overreact to 3 games in April. And so I'm not saying if the Royals win this series, start socking your pennies away for World Series tickets. But I think a series win this weekend would lend a lot of credence towards the early feelings of optimism some people, including some of us, have expressed about this team.
I agree with you that it feels different. And I think the reason why, if you're talking about, the reason why is because the Royals are actually entertaining now and Baltimore is really good. That's the reason this series has juice, period. And the fact that you're going to get a Corbin Burns versus Cole Reagans matchup in particular adds that much more to the whole thing. But if you want to talk about a Royals team that maybe has a chance to make a run at a playoff, a Royals team that at the very least has a real chance to be competitive into the month of September this year, winning games now count the same as winning games in July, August, and September. I know those feel bigger because there's fewer games left. The standings are more concrete. There's a better shape to them, a better outline of what the postseason could look like. I understand that we put more weight on those. But as the schedule continues to get more difficult, joking about playing the White Sox, well, they've only got 6 more against Chicago the rest of the way.
Right.
That Chicago team anyway. That's by nature going to make things a whole lot more difficult, right? During the rest of the stretch. So winning games now and winning games against good teams now, not that they have to worry about tiebreakers with the Orioles or anything, but winning games now is going to do a whole lot of wonders for this team down the stretch when they do inevitably hit a skid. I am not going to be surprised if the Royals have a bad month at some point because they are young, because I think this is not a with all the positivity, this is not a perfect team by any means.
Depth is going to matter at some point.
Yes.
If the injury bug catches up, this is not going to be, lollipops and rainbows for 162 games. It never is. But you're early, you're healthy, you're playing well, you're at home. You've got a chance to continue to build on this early season momentum and a little bit of positivity, because when you look back at last year's Royals season, they were a young team last year too, and they came out of the gates and just made a mess of things in April. And if you play that poorly, if you have that kind of an April, it makes May harder. It makes June and July harder, because you almost feel like the season's already gone.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's nothing to play for. We've got 5 months left of this, but anything we had designs on doing as a team, because it's human nature to compete and to believe in your teammates and to have the hope of contending, playing meaningful baseball games. Every clubhouse in the game goes into a season, whether it's realistic, whether the stat nerds say it's realistic or not. You go into April feeling that beginning of season optimism. And then if you have a bad April, and the Royals in 2023 had a bad April, it just makes it just makes the rest of the season hard. You get off to a slow start, it just makes it hard. The flip side of that, if you play well early on, that's the basis for optimism through those difficult stretches, right? Like
that's what the point I was just about to bring up.
If you do have a week where you go 1-6 or you get swept by a good team on the road, or you have a wobbly couple of weeks or a wobbly month, you have an established level of performance that you can refer back to and say, hey, we've played good baseball as a group before. We just got to get back to doing the things that made us successful. And right now, the Royals know what the things are that make them successful because they've done them in the first 19.
And it's nice to see that there's multiple things that they do well.
Yeah, and I think, too, like, if you can bank this month to be a good month, you're up there in the top of your part of your division, and you have that bad month. You're not crawling out from the very depths of it if you start out bad and try to get into it in July.
Yeah, these wins are in the bank. They're 12 wins already in the bank. If you say that the Royals need, what do we figure the number was in the Central this year? We think maybe 85, 86 could get it done.
I think so.
So 12 already in the bank, 74 to go, right? These are banked. These aren't going anywhere. So it's always good. It goes without saying to get off to a good start, but it's good for psychological reasons and generally good in this marathon of a regular season to have some wins socked away when the inevitable rough turn through the rotation arrives, or you have the injury, or you have the difficult road trip, that 3-city 10-game road trip that sometimes can be hard to navigate and get all the way through successfully. It's nice to have these in the bank. It'd be nice to bank 2 more against a Baltimore team that's playing very well. They're 12-6 coming in, though their runs scored, runs allowed suggests they should be maybe a game worse, where the Royals, according to their run differential, should be 2 games better. So the Royals have outperformed the Orioles to this point, even with that series loss at Camden Yards on the first full week of the season. It should be a fun series, and it should be exciting, and it should, like, if you're cautiously optimistic about the Royals, which is the words of our guy Vance in the YouTube comments, and I know that I'm not picking on you here, Vance, but I know you were pretty skeptical when this season started. I don't think there are a lot of people that probably felt the way you did, that say, hey, look, it's great that they've added some pieces. It's great that Bobby Witt Jr. looks like a star, but they've been crappy for 6 years. I'll believe it when I see it. Well, for 19 games, we've seen what it looks like for these Royals to play well. We've seen the winning formula. Good pitching, great starting pitching, frankly, solid defense, and star performances from the top of your order. That's the recipe for a lot of teams, but the Royals have made it their recipe to this point. So now you know what it looks like, and now you want to measure it against a team that won 101 games and the AL East last year.
The Royals right now are on pace for 19.6 wins by the end of the month. I'm going to round down to do the conservative number here. Say they're on pace to go 19-12 through their first 31 games. That includes the 3 that were played in March. That, on one hand, you feel incredible about that because that's a really good month, and those are 19 banked wins, as you said. But the other thing, too, if you want to talk about where you're going to be in August and September, is you can afford to have a down month then. Yeah. You're setting yourself up for a spot where you are not, what's the phrase? You can say it about golf, you can say it about baseball, you can say it about so many different things. You can't win the World Series in April, but you can sure put yourself in a hole where you don't think you can get there. That kind of screwed up the phrase, but I had to make it fit for baseball. But you're not going to win the division in April. But if you go 8-23 in the month, guess what? You're not a playoff team. Well, that's just not going to happen.
I think too, this 12 wins so far is really going to help because they have tonight starts 13 games in 13 days, no off days until the 2nd of May, and you got to travel. You got to go up to Detroit and then into Canada to play Toronto. So that doesn't, those 12 wins, you have 13 games if you hit a bad stretch on the road, as one of you guys mentioned, just a few minutes ago, that can help. And 13 games in 13 days is no easy feat.
And also, in addition to that, as Christopher points out on YouTube, the next 19 games, even after that off day, they are all against teams that, as of right now, have a winning record.
So, obviously, Baltimore here this weekend, 3 with Toronto, 3 with Detroit. I believe it's 4 with Toronto. Or is it 4 with Toronto home?
Let me see. It is 4 with Toronto at home.
Yeah, that's right. 4 with Toronto at the K. So this is a 7-game homestand. And then you've got the road trip out to Detroit and Toronto, the off day, then back home. The defending world champion Rangers come to the K, and then Milwaukee for an interleague series at Kauffman Stadium. So it's a stretch of games where you get a lot of them at home, which is good. But yeah, this is where you're going to do a little fact finding about this Royals team.
If I may kvetch for a moment here, MLB scheduling sucks.
Yes.
It is awful. The Royals have now, by the time this month is over, so 1/6 of the Major League Baseball season, by the time it's over, they will have played more than half their games against a divisional rival. They'll be done playing the Orioles, and they will be done playing the Blue Jays by the first day of next month. What is that? What is that scheduling?
Yeah, I don't know what that's about. I don't know why teams are playing the same teams twice in April. That doesn't make any kind of sense, does it?
No, it's absolutely ludicrous. I know the Royals are not the only team that are like this. I've seen, friends of mine who are fans of other teams who have complained about the same thing. It doesn't make any sense. I do not understand why they have to do that. Is it important in the grand scheme of things? No, it's probably not. But damn, we couldn't have gotten this a little bit more spread out. May isn't like that, as far as I'm aware. Looking at the schedule right now, they don't play anyone in May that's a repeat opponent.
Yeah.
So I just don't understand why they can't.
Well, I think too that the way the MLB changed their scheduling a couple years back, where you're not playing your divisional opponents as much and you're playing everyone across the league for at least a series, kind of changed scheduling and what you're used to.
Yeah,
because you say that they're going to play the White Sox this many times. Well, then they might have however many games against them left.
So they only have,
I can't remember the number.
Yeah, so they have six more games against the White Sox.
1 home series, one road series.
And they play all of them between the 19th and 31st of July. What is that?
Yeah, to not play September needs to be heavy divisional baseball. And I know that you can't really do that because you can't always be playing a divisional series because, if you've got 2 divisional series going on, that leaves a 5th team to play somebody else. I understand the logistics of that, but I would like to see September be divisional heavy. And I think it tends to be, but you should be playing everybody in your division at least once in September. When I am made the czar of professional sports.
The Royals,
that is what I will suggest.
I think your last series should be against a divisional opponent as well.
But again,
they're playing the Nationals, then the Braves as their last 2 series.
That is weird that they're playing 2
on the road
National League East teams on the road to wrap up their season. But again, the way divisions work is, okay, you say, let's wrap up against divisional teams. All right, we got the Guardians and the Royals. We got the Tigers and the White Sox. Oh, shoot, who do the Twins play? The odd numbers make that not workable. As much as I would like to see those divisional games going down to the wire and divisional series mattering there in that final week, I understand there's a logistic issue with that, but you should still try to do it. And there's, again, I get you have to have an interleague series, but you shouldn't be finishing the season with interleague baseball.
Here's the thing, though.
Interleague baseball shouldn't exist.
Well, okay, no. For us,
we should go back to 16 teams in one league, 14 in another, and
smaller playoffs,
and smaller playoffs.
World Series should be done by Halloween.
Get rid of the DH and play every game at 1 o'clock. And yes,
okay. Well, that last point is true. Baseball should never be played after dark. I have the Cubs game up right here. Watching a game at night after watching a game played in daylight sucks. The trash, terrible aesthetic. On a serious note, though, that's the thing that frustrates me. And as maybe not quite as much of a traditional baseball accelerationist as you are, Dan, baseball tries so hard to both be in love with the romance of years gone by, but also like, oh, well, the NFL does this. Why don't we do it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You can't do both. You can't. It doesn't work that way.
When they do go to 32 teams, which as soon as the A's are settled in Las Vegas and they put shovels in the ground in the new ballpark in Tampa, that's going to happen. They're going to be expansion. We're going to go to 32 teams. And at that point, just break up the leagues and just do geography. At this point, the league, at that point, the leagues kind of stop mattering and just move further and further away from God's light and just get rid of the leagues. And whatever you do, please do not put the Rockies in a division with the Dodgers. Do not do that to me personally.
Dan, I have an unfortunate piece of news for you about United States geography.
Hey, there's a lot of teams in California. Let them all play each other. That's why I say get rid of leagues. The Dodgers and the Angels can be in a division. Keep them out of my hair.
No, because then the Cubs and White Sox have to be in one, and I don't want that.
I want a Houston, Texas, Colorado, Kansas City division.
Houston, Texas, Colorado, Kansas City.
Geographically,
Yeah.
I think that makes the most sense.
Probably.
Speaking of the Orioles, by the way, they come to town this weekend. Do you know who their second leading hitter is? Their leading hitter right now is a young man by the name of Colton Cowser, who has hit 400, but is also striking out a third of the time. So, maybe a little batting average on balls and plate luck for young Mr. Cowser. But do you know who their second leading hitter is in terms of OPS?
I can't remember his name. I'm going to know who this is, but I'm not going to.
Royals fans, you know his name.
It's Ryan O'Hearn.
It's Ryan O'Hearn.
He went, I think, 3 straight games with a home run at one point.
Yeah, he's got 4 dingers. He's hitting 319, a 1.044 OPS. I mean, this team's got dudes to hit the cover off the ball. Gunnar Henderson's off to a great start with 6 home runs. Adley Rutschman's doing his thing.
That's
Cedric
what I thought
Mullen,
it was going to be, was Gunnar.
couldn't remember. Yeah, he's been hot too, but he pales in comparison to Royal great Ryan O'Hearn. Jordan Westberg's hitting the ball well. Cedric Mullins had a walk-off the other day. Jackson Holiday is 1 for 25 with 14 strikeouts.
Yeah, that's a
bust.
Tough.
Bust.
The people are asking.
It's over.
They gotta think about to send him down.
Isn't that how your boy Chris Bryant came out of the gate though? Just
it wasn't quite that bad, but yeah. He also didn't hit a home run till mid-May.
Right.
We were like, wait a minute. I thought he was supposed to hit 30 of these a year. What the hell happened?
The other thing that might benefit the Royals this week, you got to deal with Burns on Saturday, but it has not been outside of Burns and Grayson Rodriguez. Great work from the starting pitchers for Baltimore. Dean Kramer goes tonight. His ERA up near 5 with peripherals to match. Cole Irvin goes Sunday. His ERA is 6.75. He's given up 20 hits in 14 2/3 innings. Doesn't strike out guys. So there's an opportunity here, and the Royals can absolutely win this series. It's going to be, I think, an entertaining weekend of baseball. Saturday night's pitching matchup is box office. You can make it to the K for Reagans and Burns. That's one of those pitching matchups that we don't get very often anymore, that are like day of game. Ooh, this is tasty. I want to go see this.
Also, actually, no, it was just the home run thing with Chris Bryant. He had multiple hits in 3 of his first 5 career games.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was a home run. It was a home run thing I'm thinking of.
Yeah. He didn't hit. I do vividly remember he went on the road in Milwaukee wearing ugly ass alternate uniforms. It was like, well, this is a bad vibe, but it's fine.
How about this?
Willie Mays got off to a slow start. Mickey Mantle almost quit a month into his major league career.
Jackson Holiday in 10 games in AAA with 56 plate appearance, 42 at-bats. He had 14 hits, 333, including 2 homers and 5 doubles.
And now he has as many strikeouts in the majors as he had hits in AAA.
Yeah, that's and he had, what's the number? He had 8 strikeouts in AAA, and now he has 14 in the MLB.
There's probably a discussion to be had about how easy it is to hit in AAA right now, but we'll save that for another day because we have to get to our first commercial break of the show. When we come back on the other side of this break, we have this week's edition of Change My Mind, and we'll talk a little K-State football coming up on 580 Sports Talk. 2:33 on this Feel Good Friday edition of 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan. That's Dan. That's Spencer. Thanks so much for spending some of your Friday afternoon with us. Dan, do you know what happened on this day in 1987?
On this day in 1987.
Yep. I feel like this should be an important day for you.
An important day for me?
For you, specifically. More so than either of us, anyway. Other than the fact that you were the only one who was alive at that point.
I was the only one of us who was alive
Yeah.
On that day. I would have been close to turning 7 months, which is not a thing that you turn. You just
are.
You were close to being
7 months old. Yes. I don't know. I'm stumped. Tell me.
The first ever animated short now known as The Simpsons,
Is that right?
aired on the Tracy Ullman Show.
How about that?
1987.
And that's still going. They are still,
Yes, it is.
They are still making new episodes.
When's the last time you watched a new episode, Sunday night animation domination of The Simpsons?
It has been at least a decade.
Yeah,
It has been in that time frame. I have probably watched like Homer at the Bat or Mr. Plow like a dozen times.
I'm a big American Dad guy.
You were?
Because it was on Netflix while I was in college.
Oh, yeah.
So it was one of those, just like I got time to kill.
Sure.
It's either that or watch The Office.
I never watched a lot of this. No one in my family watched it, so I never watched a lot of The Simpsons. I enjoy the show, what I've seen. I tried for a while to watch it new. We're talking, again, over a decade ago, probably. And it was a lot of, there's 2 or 3 funny one-liners, but not really a whole lot of imagination other than that. It's certainly not the magic it had in the early to mid 1990s. So but someone's watching. Someone out there is still watching The Simpsons because it is still being put on TV.
I will say, I don't know if they still do, but during COVID, I got into a little thing where on Disney Plus they have all the predictions episodes.
Oh, really?
Where The Simpsons made predictions for what was going to happen.
That's funny.
And they highlighted all the episodes. There was a playlist that you could just watch.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
We have a question here from the YouTube comments. Christopher asks, thoughts on 46 interleague games per season?
46 too many.
You either need to go all the way into it and just say, it doesn't matter who you play. Your league does not matter. You play your division a little extra, and the rest does not matter. You play an even number of games against everybody.
Which is what they do now, essentially.
Yeah. I would say go even farther. You don't play, everyone you get 1 home 4 game or 1 road 4 game. That's it.
Okay.
That go all the way if you're going to go all the way on it. And then you just play your division a little bit more. We're getting closer and closer to that in the NFL. And now that you play even more cross-conference games, you play... What is it now? 5 guaranteed, 6 guaranteed that are cross conference every year. So, just either go all the way with it or go back to the way it was, frankly, pre-interleague, but certainly before moving the Astros to the American League. Bring the Astros back to the NL. The Astros aren't very good anymore, at least right now this season. So bring them on back. I'll take them in the NL Central.
Bring the Brewers back to the American League while we're at it.
Yeah. And contract the Marlins.
And send the Nationals back to Montreal. I'm sorry.
Did you see? So somebody has an account for the Expos.
Yeah.
And the whole thing going on right now is somebody from Atlanta, somebody has an account that they pay for the verification for the Atlanta Thrashers.
Yes.
And they tweeted something yesterday about wanting to become another team. And then the Expos said, don't forget about us. We still want baseball in Montreal.
There is a push for hockey to return to Atlanta.
Yeah.
It's a huge metro area.
But it's never worked.
Yeah.
They've tried multiple times and it's failed.
It's you strike 2 and you're out, right? Like the Atlanta Flames didn't last, the Thrashers didn't last.
How long did either of those teams exist?
I don't think the Thrashers made it much more than a decade, if even a decade.
The Flames were 72 to 80. So that's 9 years?
Yeah.
And the Thrashers were
99 to 2011.
99 to 2011.
Yeah.
So 12 years.
Yeah, just
there.
over a decade.
At least football in Los Angeles existed for a long time before it went away.
Yeah.
And then eventually came back.
It's really not so much. It's just about, there's a lot of people that live here. And that's why we want to have a presence in this market. It's the reason that they were trying so hard to make Arizona work, because Phoenix is, I think it's the 5th largest city in the United States.
It's something like that. I was going to say 7th, but yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
Let's see. I can pull it up for you right now. List of United States cities by population. Phoenix is indeed 5th. And it is the only one that has grown in population since the 2020 census.
The snowbirds love it.
You know that's
the
right.
last 3 years of the Thrashers' existence, they went without a color analyst on their radio broadcast.
Doing hockey on the radio on your own sounds, frankly, impossible. That sounds terrible.
The only time I
don't know if they had somebody that would like fill in, but like if you go on their Wikipedia page, which it's Wikipedia for what it's worth, it says their radio voices, and then it says color commentators, and then it gives a list, and then it says none 2008 to 2011.
That's crazy. Like basketball, I can do. I've done football. I think done
college
is football,
you see that in college. You don't really see it in professional sports.
No, I'm certainly not for hockey. That sounds really
brutal.
Difficult. But this is a perfect segue into my change my mind for this week. Change my mind. Professional leagues, we're talking the big 4 leagues, should realistically be considering contraction rather than expansion. I'm not talking about money. Let me make that clear. I'm not talking about the bottom line for these leagues. I'm talking about for competition, for the fans, for etc. All the other things other than your advertising bottom line, they should be considering contraction before expansion.
I understand like the argument for it, frankly, in baseball, because there are just some franchises who can't compete. They don't have the ownership to be able to compete, and maybe just shouldn't exist for a little while. Looking at you, Oakland.
Yeah.
Looking at you, Pittsburgh. I'm looking at you, Colorado. Like franchises with unserious ownership groups who are just never going to do what it takes to be competitive over the long haul. Like those are franchises that should not exist. The thing is, baseball is the only sport where that's an issue because it's the only sport without a cap. So in every other sport where you've got a salary cap, and even in some sports, a salary floor, you really do have realistic paths to contention for even the cheapest owners out there. So I don't know that contraction is actually realistic. I think that over expansion is dangerous. Like if the NHL is really talking about, we'll hold tight, Phoenix, and we'll come back to you when we look to expand again. Does the NHL need 34 teams? Does any league need 34 teams?
No.
34 is kind of an unwieldy number, so let's get to 36, right? Do we need 36?
No.
There are some metro areas out there that if you like reparceled the teams out based on how big cities are today, like would Pittsburgh have 3 teams? Maybe not. Like would Milwaukee have a bunch of teams? Maybe not. Would Kansas City? It's a fair question, but we're not going backwards. And the only way we're going is we're not taking teams out of established markets and moving them unless there are extreme circumstances. Like there obviously were in Phoenix for hockey, and there obviously have been in Oakland for baseball. So expansion is the way forward. And I think we're going to have 32 major league teams in about 10 years, and we might get to 36 NHL teams and 36 NBA teams. Like that's not that, maybe 32 NBA teams. They got 32 first, but that expansion is coming. Contraction is not.
See, I think like on the NHLs, I've been to more NHL games, maybe as many baseball MLB games. It's hard to keep count, but watching on TV, if you don't put a good product out there, you're not going to get people to go. And like when the Capitals, I think a year ago, when they weren't good, they broke their sellout streak. They had a sellout streak since 2007. And they didn't make the playoffs last year. Well, what did they do in March of last year? Broke their sellout streak. So people aren't going to go to games if the teams aren't good. So why expand?
See, I think my point more so is there is far too much of an impetus in multiple professional sports leagues to just not be good. Like Detroit could have done something to not be 14-68 this year in the NBA. There is something they could have done. You know what would have helped that? If you had a more concentrated talent pool. I think that is the thing. That's what I'm focusing on here. I think if you had a more concentrated talent pool, you're going to avoid some of the obvious tanking things. Baseball, you're right. It's different because it's uncapped and there are other issues that come with that. But I mean, even take the NFL. The NFL is never going to get smaller, obviously. I don't know who you would contract, obviously. You know what would make the NFL a better product? More teams with quarterbacks. More games that feature good quarterback matchups.
Yes.
That would be a good thing for the NFL. Basketball, more teams, or a higher percentage, that's the way I should phrase it, a higher percentage of your teams that have star caliber players. More of those guys, more teams will be able to do that if you don't have the Wizards or the Hornets, who probably shouldn't even exist. That team also totally unserious, to use that word. So that's essentially where I'm coming from with that.
All right. Big night last night. If you were online for it, Taylor Swift dropped an album and then dropped another album. Had
2 hours later.
Had two in the chamber for the Swifties out there. The album came out. I am not such a big fan of her music that I'm gonna like run to check it. I'll probably hear some of it on the radio, I'm sure. But changed my mind. Chiefs fans everywhere owe it to Taylor Swift to stream her album and make sure it hits #1 in the country. That is the
100%.
obligation of Chiefs fans everywhere. She had your back on your way to a championship. You got to have hers and take. I had no idea who has #1 album in the country. #1 song in the country is Future and Kendrick Lamar. I have no idea who the #1 album in the country is right now.
I think 2.
But they got to go down.
Yeah.
Whoever it is, that you got to take them down. And Chiefs fans, you got to help.
Not only was she supporting by being there, she supported after the aftermath of the tragedy at the Super Bowl parade.
That's right. She's
Financially,
she's there for you. She's a member of the kingdom.
You can probably guess who the #1 album in the country is.
Oh, it's Beyonce, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Beyonce.
Yeah, still Beyonce. Ooh, that's going to be tough. So she needs you. Chiefs fans, Chiefs Kingdom, rise up. You don't even have to listen. Just click on it on Spotify and turn the volume down. But you owe it to her to have her back the way she has yours. I feel very passionately about it.
I can tell. I don't know that you owe it to her. I'm sure she would appreciate it. Shoot, man. No, I'm going to say no. We're talking about working class people, regular Joes here.
Yes.
Regular Joes being supported by the people who have more power and influence is not the same as the regular Joes continuing to build those people up. My radicalization to hating the ruling class, it continues here. Taylor Swift, I am sorry.
Brendan, eat the rich, Wersinski.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Always been me. No, I don't think so. Have you listened to any of it yet?
No,
I didn't either.
It's just it's not like
I heard she
Taylor's
apparently talked about Travis in one song.
Yes,
That's
is one
the rumor.
song. There is one song with some extremely not subtle football
Touchdown.
Imagery or analogies or words.
Yeah.
Extremely not subtle. Somebody already made a Travis Kelce highlight video set to the song. It's floating around social media if you really want to look for it. But the music's just not my speed. I'm not like out here checking for it. But if you're a Chiefs fan, help her out. Get her to #1.
Spencer, do you have a change my mind real quick?
Yes. This has to do with the Royals-Orioles series. We will see this matchup as the 6-3 in this year's playoffs, with the Royals being 6 and the Orioles being 3.
I'm going to say that if the Royals make the playoffs, it will not be as a wild card. So that won't happen.
Yeah, I think the Royals, it's more likely that the Royals would be the 3 then, right? Because they would win the Central. I think Baltimore wins the American League. So I think if they matched up, it would have to be later in the playoffs. I don't think the Royals are making it, for what it's worth.
I think I'm still a little hesitant to call the Royals a playoff team. They're better. They look better than I thought. I predicted they'd win 78 games. I'm willing to adjust upward and think they can get to 500, and that puts the division in reach for them.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a hard time thinking, like, it took 90 wins to get a wild card in the American League last year. I don't think they're getting that many. So I don't think they'd be a wild card, which means I don't think they'd be the 6th seed.
We have to get to a break. When we come back, some updates on what's going on with K-State football, specifically on the defensive line here on 580 Sports Talk. We're going to talk to Tim Fitzgerald a little bit later on in the show, a 2-day late edition of the Wildcat Wrap-up. And we'll talk some football because K-State is in kind of a jam right now. Javon Banks, who is a defensive tackle reserve, but played in all 13 games this past season, had 9 tackles, 2 sacks, entered the transfer portal earlier this week. K-State has no depth along the defensive line at all. I mean, this is as depleted of a position group as any position group in the Big 12. Seriously, and I don't think it's time to panic about K-State football or anything like that. We have just entered the second portal window. K-State could go out there and add somebody. In fact, a report from Go Powercats' Ryan Wallace today said K-State's already got 4 offers out in the portal to defensive tackles. They obviously know it's an issue. They want to go after it. But it is a little jarring to see such an important position for K-State's defense in that 3-3-5, that 3-man defensive front, to have nobody who is still around.
Well, that's just the thing, though, right? It's a 3-3-5. You do the math. 3 defensive linemen means how many defensive tackles? 1. One on the field at a time. And obviously, you can't play Uso Seumalo, who I like a lot, and I think is a certainly a Big 12 caliber starting space-eating defensive tackle. You can't play him 80 snaps a game, obviously. You do need depth at the spot. I know they like Damian Alalio from Manhattan, and I think he'll play some. But, yes, you'd like to have a little bit more experience and a little bit more depth there. I think if they add 1 guy through the portal at the spot, they'll be in decent shape. You'd maybe like to add 2, but even if they just add the 1 and they can more heavily rotate Uso, keep his legs fresh a little bit, then I think they'd be in okay shape there. You guys know that meme where you've got like the 2 guys are on a bus and one guy looks sad on the one side of the bus and everything is dark and gross out that window. And then the other guy is smiling and looking out his window and everything is nice and sunshiny out his side of the window. The guy on the one side of the window, the sad side of the window, is people who obsessively follow roster movement in the transfer portal. And the guy on the right looking out in the sunny side is the guy who checks the roster the day before the first game.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably true. It's hard. I mean, following football recruiting and transferring is insane. Like, I can do it for basketball. Football, I can't keep up. Too many names, too many positions. It is just really, really hard to keep up with that.
For the record, K-State does have at least one of those 4 offers confirmed to be coming in for a visit. Carlos Allen, who's transferring from Kennesaw State, the newest FBS program as they join Conference USA this year. He is set to visit May 10th. He's also going to visit Houston and Indiana.
I think K-State needs 2. You need at least 1 to get to a 3 deep at your true defensive tackle spot. But not every rotation and not every positional grouping is a true 2 defensive ends, 1 defensive tackle. There are certain packages where you're going to see 2 defensive tackles at one time. You might see some packages where 3 guys listed as a defensive end are all out there at the exact same time. So I do think you need a little bit more playable depth. I mean, I know they like Asher Tomaszewski, the kid from Northwest Indiana, who they recruited a year ago. He's going to be a redshirt freshman this year. They've got a couple juniors that have never really played a whole lot who are local kids. I think you need to get a couple there. They don't need to be studs. Like, I'm not saying go out there and get, a pair of 5-star transfers. I just think you need to have a little bit more depth there, because with the 3-3-5, the pressure is to be all able to have those fresh legs as much as possible, because you do want to rotate a lot, because that's a lot of pressure you're putting on a smaller group of guys. Same goes for linebacker. And in that Go Powercat report today, said K-State's actually looking for a lot of linebacker help too, some linebacker depth, because those guys have so many responsibilities.
And they weren't deep at linebacker last year.
No.
It really cost them down the stretch of the season.
We'll talk more about this with Tim Fitzgerald coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. When we lead off the 3 o'clock hour of the show, however, we're going to hear from Chiefs General Manager Brett Veach. That's up after the news here on 580 Sports Talk. Hey now, it's the 3 o'clock hour of a feel-good Friday on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis, all here with you today. Thanks for hanging out with us. We got Royals baseball tonight, 6:40 first pitch, Royals versus Orioles. Here in the 3 o'clock hour of the show, we'll hear from Brett Veach momentarily. We've got On Second Thought for the week. And we will talk to Matt Derrick, our Chiefs insider. He is going to join us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline coming up in just a little bit. We're still taking your texts to the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429. And you can also find us on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is the name of our channel. If you would like to enter the Alpha Media Choose Your Trip contest, well, lucky you, I have got the keyword for you for the 3 o'clock hour. Head to 580wibw.com. Click on Choose Your Trip. It's a link right in the middle of the page. You have until 4 o'clock to enter this next keyword. It is Explore. E-X-P-L-O-R-E. Explore. That is the word for the hour. So again, up until 4 o'clock, you can enter that with your chance to win a trip to anywhere you want to go, courtesy of Alpha Media and the Choose Your Trip contest. We will hear from Brett Veach here momentarily. A little bit later on, we will get to some Chiefs banter around the trade, a little fun exercise about redrafting last year's draft class.
That's
and
today on the redraftables. But first, here's Pearl Jam.
Yes. Amazingly, this is not a Bill Simmons piece. Unbelievably. I could not tell you the last time I consumed something that was Bill Simmons content.
I will listen to him if I know he's going to do a segment where he talks about Nikola Jokic.
I thought you were going to say Pearl Jam.
If the word Jokic or Nuggets is in the podcast title, I will go listen to that part of the podcast. But I am not sitting and listening to him and House redraft the teams from Team Wolf. I'm not doing that.
The Ringer pumps out some really good written content. In fact, I just read a long-form piece about Tubi last night. It was really good.
Yes, they do. They do a lot of good stuff.
I can't do the podcast stuff. The personalities are so grating to me, honestly.
I loved 60 Songs That Explain the 90s with Rob Harvilla. I enjoyed that series. I enjoyed that series. I bought the book. Like I really like reading what Rob Harvilla writes. And
I have no clue what you guys are talking about.
That's fine. But yeah, like I don't need 7 different Bill Simmons podcasts about television.
No, because I don't care what Bill Simmons says about television. I could not possibly care. Like Ryan Russillo, once upon a time, great radio host with Scott Van Pelt. I can't do it. He is so arrogant to me, and I can't do that.
Yeah, he's perfect second banana. He was a Scottie Pippen to Van Pelt's Jordan for a while, and he can't lead his own team.
Like I've mentioned before, I really enjoy the Athletic Football Show. That's my go-to NFL podcast. I think I enjoy Robert Mays, the host of that. I think he's a little arrogant. He went to Missouri. You can understand why. But he's got good co-hosts. The flow of it is good. The Ringer podcasts are just a lot of us telling you that we're smarter than you. And then, like, I don't want to use any euphemisms. It's too much for me. So yes, amazingly, that particular redraft was from The Athletic and not from The Ringer. We'll get to that in the 4 o'clock hour. Some interesting stuff from Brett Veach today, the general manager of the Kansas City Chiefs. So let's hear what Veach had to say for his pre-draft Zoom press conference earlier today.
Excited for the draft next week. Certainly want to thank my personnel staff and the coaching staff for all their hard work. Certainly all year round, but especially these last few months and weeks, we've been putting our final touches on the draft board and look forward to Thursday and hopefully adding some more talent to this roster. So with that, open it up and take some questions.
Hey, Brett, curious about this draft in particular when it comes to offensive tackle, wide receiver, just casting a wide net, what you think of those two positions, and then where you think maybe the best value in this class would be.
Yeah, I think the draft in general has some positional depth. Although it is funny when we're looking at the numbers and the general consensus is this is a deep O-line class, or this is a deep D-line class, or what have you. It's not necessarily true for us. I think sometimes, because like for the tackle position, I think once you get past like pick 35 or 40, most of those guys are gone. So if you're picking in the top 10, it's a great offensive line class. If you're picking in the top 15, it's a great offensive line class. If you're picking 32 and 64, you got a shot maybe here or there. So I think that goes into, the additional work we put in and putting a strategy together and what guys might be worth a move, depending on how it all plays out, and what other positions are going to provide top end value if say an O lineman or receiver isn't there, and do you go corner, do you go defensive line? I think that there are some interesting pockets there. So I think the good thing is that, like every year, there's a lot of good players, and it's just a matter of working on our board, our system, given the picks we have, and the potential moves we can make.
We haven't really got a chance to talk to you since the free agency period started.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of my two questions. But that one, what was kind of your take on just everything that you were able to get done, especially, Chris, and bringing so many of the guys back on defense, and obviously the addition of Hollywood Brown too. And then I'll have a follow-up.
Yeah, so going into the offseason, a lot of work to do, and always unique challenges depending on the year and what your cap situation looks like. When we left Vegas and had a chance to get together before the combine, we were just kind of outlining some different ideas and some thought processes. And one of the things that I think was glaring to us was we were potentially looking at losing most, if not all, of our defensive line, Mike Dana, Chris Jones, Turk Wharton, Derrick Nottie. So obviously a huge amount of concern there, especially given how well our defense played last year. I mean, it was one of the top units in the NFL. Those guys have all played together in the system for a long time. So Chris, right out of the gate, was our priority. Wanted to make sure we got him done. And then I think there was a little domino effect there. Had to move with LJ, and we were able to bring Mike Dana back. But I think being able to secure that front with Dana, Turk, Nottie, and Jones was really important to us. Bringing back Drew, Tranquil was important to us. So really focused on, retaining as much of that defense from last year as we could. And then like every year, whether it be free agency in the draft, if there's an opportunity to add a playmaker for Pat, we're always going to be looking for those options, and played it out, so to speak, in some other positions. And I think we were lucky that, Hollywood situation played out the way he did, and think he's going to be a great one-year addition for us, and he's going to set himself up nicely moving forward. So I think we're excited, and, it's, like I said, every year is different and unique. And I think with the resources we had available, we maximized what we can do this offseason.
You mentioned like the offensive line in particular and the depth in this draft. This organization's made a move before from 27 to 10 to get a quarterback. Could you ever envision yourself going to 32 to top 15, top 10 for a non-quarterback position?
I mean, I can envision myself. I mean, got to get the owner's approval on that. But no, I think it changes every year, and I think we have a pretty good plan this upcoming week. But yeah, I think, listen, every situation is unique. I mean, we've had conversations in the last few years about guys that we consider top 5, top 6 prospects if they were to fall into the teens moving up, and got Clark and Andy involved, and they were all in it, and those situations just didn't work out. So I think that I certainly could see something like that. A lot of things have to fall in place though for that to happen. So it'd have to be probably a specific guy or two, and then probably getting into a landing spot that's not expected. And then if he does get to that landing spot that's not expected, the team is willing to work with you on a trade that makes sense. So certainly can see it. A lot of things have to happen and fall in place for that to to see an outcome like that. But I always think anything's possible.
Just wondering, without asking you to reveal your draft board, just what you think overall of the wide receiver class.
I think it's one of the deeper classes. I think the good thing about the wide receiver position, this is typically every year, is they provide depth really 1 through 5, and there's always pockets of players. I think there's a large group of receivers in the first 50 picks. I think that we have great grades on, and then I think there's another pocket right behind that. I think that is a positive. I think corner, there's some depth, middle to later on in the draft. O-lineman, as I mentioned in the opener, it's really good early. And so there'll be a late run on those guys, but it tails off a little bit. I think it's a better defensive line class than we've seen in the past. I think there's some good mid-round depth there. Linebacker, running backs probably a little lighter than years past. So I think O-line, receivers, corners are good hot spots throughout the draft, and that's a good thing because we can use one of each of those.
Just based on how last year unfolded, particularly the back end of the draft, I know there were at least a couple teams that weren't excited to deal with you. What's this last week like as far as setting up the potential, if there are guys that maybe you would want to trade up for as the draft unfolds?
Well, we'll see. Typically, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right before the draft is when the teams do all their call checks, make sure the phone numbers are working for the teams. So we'll get an email list of draft day phone numbers. So we typically do a run through and check with all the teams, and once we do that, it usually kind of spins into just some casual dialogue, hypothetically, and if you were looking to move up or move back, those type of scenarios. So I think we'll do a good job of getting out in front of this and talking to some teams and seeing where their mind is in regards to value of or their boards, or what boards they're working on. A large part of this is just making sure we're all on the same page in regards to what draft boards you're working from, because as you know, Sam, there's tons of boards. Each team has their own boards, and in a combination of other teams' boards with historical boards they use. So we typically reach out to those teams early in the week, make sure the phones are working, and exchange some ideas, and usually just make sure we're all on the same page in regards to what boards we're working off of.
In light of what's going on with Rashee Rice, does that make you have to, put some guys like a Tavondre Sweat, who got a DWI in the last week or so? Do you have to push those guys off your board more now because of what you're dealing with currently?
Yeah, we spend a great deal of time on all these players, and I think we have to look at each individual case independently and just work through it. And I think maybe subconsciously, maybe it factors a little, but I think that when we stick to our process and trust the guys that we have around us, when we have a great coaching staff, we have a great personnel staff, we have a great security team. So we really lean on those guys. And at the end of the day, I trust the people around me, and they spend a lot of time working on the player and his ability to come in here and be a good person, be a good teammate. And so I think we try to stick to what we've done in the past. And there'll always be some things that factor into ultimately what we decide to do with a guy. But I think sticking to our process, and we've done this now for a little bit here, and it over the long run, it's provided us a good blueprint to work off of.
And then kind of a follow up to what Sam had. Since you won the championship, do you find yourself like there aren't as many trade partners? Teams actively don't want to deal with you because they're afraid that they'll be helping the champ?
I think yes and no. I think that if a team, if it can benefit them, I think they're always going to pick up the phone and call and be willing to work. I don't think a team is going to, diminish their ability to do something they really want to do just because it's the Chiefs. I do think, though, that the ability to deal with certain teams, it's always been understood that if you're going to deal with a team in your division, there's a little bit more of a premium. But I think just some of the AFC teams in general that are consistent playoff performers, the Buffaloes and the Cincinnatis and the Baltimores, it's probably a little bit harder to deal with those teams. And even if they do pick up the phone, I think some of their asking prices are a tick higher. So I think we get hit with a little bit more interest. But I think that there's always a way to make a deal. But I think certain teams will probably up the price up a little bit.
Hey, Brett, I think you just touched on this a second ago, and I think we ask you this every year, but the value of the visit, whether it's at the combine or a pro day or whatever, what kind of information do you glean from that, and how helpful can it be?
Oh, it's extremely helpful. And when the guys come in here for the visit, they're here all day. They'll start in the training room. They'll go through another comprehensive MRI and meeting with Rick. And then from there, they get a a chance to visit with all of our coaches. And at the combine, we do have a chance to spend some time with these kids, but I mean, it's maxed out at like 15 to 17 minutes. So you get a chance to get a brief intro, a little bit of an idea of their background, and you get into some football, but it's not very long. So I think just having the whole day and getting to know the person, understand the person more, talk through things, talk through football, talk through their upbringing, all that kind of stuff is extremely important to us. And, typically we go through our system and guys, we either feel, one way or the other, and guys that, we're not interested in is one category. And then guys that we feel really good about, we know this guy, it's not going to do us any good. We don't deal with those guys, but then you have a handful of guys that you don't, when you're at the combine, you felt like that 15 minutes just wasn't enough and you wanted some more information. And then there's another series of guys you bring in that didn't get invited to the combine. So you kind of like them to some degree, but you have no medical on them whatsoever. So those guys have to come in because there's just no medical on them. So it's a combination of different combinations of reasons of why we bring guys in, but they're super beneficial for us.
Hey, Brett, I just wanted, with Rasheed's kind of unknown status right now, how, if at all, does that change or affect your guys' draft and who you might take?
Yeah, I don't know if it does, just because I think we have a lot of needs. And I think it's one of those things that, you go into every draft. I mean, you can look at our roster, and I think short of quarterback, maybe linebacker. But I think that there's needs on the offensive line for sure. I mean, guard center depth, competition at left tackle, receiver, there's a need. Cornerback, we just lost Snead. We do have some good young guys. We do have Najee Johnson coming back. But the corners are hard to find. We could probably throw safety in there too, because I think we really like Shamari Connor and Cook and Reed. So, look, I think that it's one of those scenarios where I think there's a lot of positions that would make sense for us. And again, you start at the O-line, D-line, and receiver position. But it's a long season, and, depth is super important to us. And also, guys' contracts do run out. And, I think anytime you get a player that you think can come in here and challenge for a starting position right away, I think you go in that direction.
Yeah, you kind of let me do this one. Situations change every year. A couple years ago, you guys had lots of draft capital, go up and get Trent McDuffie. How likely do you think a trade up is this year, just given your overall depth and the draft capital that you have?
Yeah, it's just kind of, weighing the options. And on one end, there's probably, I think there's 16, 18 guys this year that we have as first round grades. You factor in some quarterbacks there. So, and then some maybe some teams that go in different directions that are contradictory to what our board has. So you figure 16 to 18 names, 4 quarterbacks, maybe 5 quarterbacks. I mean, there could be a window there where we have an opportunity to get a guy, and then it's just weighing, the cost, because if it is a corner or an O-lineman or, receiver, we're probably going to give up the opportunity to draft that other position later in the draft. So is, one guy that you have a first round grade on better than 2 guys that you maybe have second, third round grades on? It's just kind of weighing that formula for us. And, I think that's where it comes down to just, the value of that guy that falls. And if he's one of those guys that you really have as a top 10, top 12 pick, I think you up and do it. Like Trent McDuffie's situation, I think if it's one of those guys, I think we'll certainly be aggressive, and hopefully we can find a trading partner. But I also think there's some depth in round 2 there. So, I do think there's opportunities to add players that can come in and push for starting positions in rounds 2 and 3 as well.
So that is the lion's share of what Brett Veach had to say earlier on today, his pre-draft press conference. Of course, the draft begins in 6 days. 1 week from today, in fact, will be rounds 2 and 3 of the NFL draft. That was a good final question to end on from our pal Jesse Newell at the Star about trading up in this year's class and who they have first round grades on. I feel like when you pick late, you always hear, oh, well, this is a guy we had a first round grade on. And while sometimes that's believable, like Trent McDuffie, absolutely believable that Trent McDuffie was a player that had a first round grade on. I thought he was for sure a first rounder. It has worked out very well with him. We always hear like, oh, well, this guy fell to 32, but we had a first round grade on him, so we took him. Isn't that always what GMs say? So all in all, I would not be surprised if the Chiefs moved up. I would be surprised if they moved beyond like 25 24 or so. I think 24 is a good spot. I know we mentioned that yesterday talking about Bill Barnwell's hypothetical trades.
Yeah,
because
that's the Dallas pick, and it's ahead of two teams that have a dire need for offensive line help and a team in Buffalo that has a dire need for wide receiver help. So moving ahead of those teams to go get a guy, if you really love a guy at one of those positions, would seem to make the most sense. And I think that's the best balance of being aggressive, but maintaining some of that third day draft capital that the Chiefs have done so well with.
Yeah. So I think the Chiefs are going to be busy. We talked about that yesterday too. I think there's going to be a lot of moves in this year's draft for the Chiefs. I think Brett Veach just kind of gets bored draft weekend. Like, okay, I mean, we've done the scouting. We just got to wait. Like, let's have some fun. Let's move around. Let's move some chess pieces around the board. We will offer our weekly mea culpa next with our On Second Thought, and then Matt Derrick will join us later on in the hour here on 580 Sports Talk. second thought, our weekly Friday staple here on 580 Sports Talk. Matt Derrick is going to join us here in just a matter of moments. My on second thought for the week, I would like to go back to my younger days when I used to play Madden all the time. I still play when I can. I'll go through, waves of playing it. I still enjoy Madden or playing NCAA, old versions of it. I don't have anything beyond the PS3, which barely even works now, by the way. It's very sad. I couldn't play NCAA the other night when I wanted to. I used to make this sick Packers alternate uniform that was black. It was like black with neon green everything, which even at the time, I knew I never wanted them to wear, but I thought it was awesome. I was wrong. Black uniforms, if you don't have black as a color, suck. Anytime the Lions lose or wear their new black and neon blue uniform, I hope they lose by 80. They look like trash. Like the Cardinals wearing black, awful. Stop with the black uniforms if you don't wear
What do you think
black.
about the Commanders black?
Bad.
Yeah.
Bad. Negative.
I don't like it.
The Jets wearing black. Out of my face.
The UniWatch guy, Paul Lucas, always called that BFBS, or black for black's sake.
Yeah.
Like black not being a team color. You're just wearing black because you think it's cool or intimidating. Yeah. And it's like, it's cool when you're 13.
Yes. Exactly.
It's like the sickest thing in the world. I want my team to wear black.
We're going to look so fast.
We're going to look badass in black. No, man, wear your team colors.
Agreed.
See, Marshall wears black uniforms on November 14th.
Okay. Well, that's, I guess, different.
Yeah, that's very different.
All right, there are a lot.
Even though that team didn't wear black.
But like there's
a mourning color, though.
Yes.
I get that.
Yes,
All
there's
right.
a reason
Fine.
behind it.
Special dispensation for if your entire football team dies in a plane crash. Yes, you get special dispensation to wear black.
Yes.
Otherwise, out of here.
My on second thought, I may have been too quick to write off the New York Yankees as American League contenders. I did not pick them to make the playoffs in our preseason prediction. Right now, they are 13-6, tied with Cleveland for the best record in the American League. Juan Soto is off the charts good right now, and the Yankees' much maligned pitching staff, even without Garrett Cole, is third in the American League in earned run average. So it is just the start, but if Giancarlo Stanton is truly reborn and Juan Soto plays at an MVP level, they're going to be a little better than maybe I expected.
While I was optimistic on Monday and Tuesday and very happy yesterday, I really, in my gut, did not think the Capitals were going to make the playoffs. Playing a back-to-back when you started against the Bruins, the best team in the league, basically, one of the best teams in the league, every year in and year out, and then having to go play the Flyers the next night, who are also vying for a playoff spot, I did not think they were going to make the playoffs, and I was content with the season ending on Tuesday night, especially because they had until Thursday to play 2 games, and I don't know why they played 2 games between Monday and Tuesday when you had Wednesday and Thursday. But yes, I didn't think the Capitals were going to make the playoffs, and what did they do? They made the playoffs.
A very positive, optimistic on second thought for this week. Matt Derrick is going to join us next to talk all things Chiefs. It's our Chiefs Insider on 580 Sports Talk. Let's go to Kansas City, where we hear from Matt Derrick, our good friend and the Chiefs beat writer for ChiefsDigest.com. That's where you can find all of his great work covering the reigning Super Bowl champions. You can also find him on Twitter at Matt Derrick. Matt, what's going on, man?
Just trying to keep up with all the fun stuff getting ready to happen before the draft. I mean, we are 6 days away, so it doesn't get more real than this.
Yeah, how excited are you that we are finally almost there and outside of smokescreen season?
Very excited about that. Yeah, now next week we can stop, kind of parsing all the statements and trying to figure out what's true from a certain point of view, what's just absolutely breadcrumbs in the wrong direction. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. And the first 2 days of the draft are a couple of my favorite days of the year, followed by Saturday, which is one of my least favorite days of the year.
Is that because it just drags on forever?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's really the only reason, because the first 2 days are just so long. I mean, everything you're done with and everything. I usually don't get to bed until like 2:00, easily on draft night. So Friday and on Thursday and Friday. And then the Chiefs usually have some sort of craziness going on Saturday morning, either with Clark Hunt or, they get the Hall of Fame that morning. So, you don't get to just wait until the draft and rolls in and everything like that. You got to be there like 2 to 3 hours early. And so, yeah, by Saturday morning, I'm too old for that. I mean, I can't bounce back as much as I used to, Brendan.
Every once in a while, because I stay up till like 2 or 3 every single day, Matt, and every once in a while I'll have a morning when I wake up and I think, okay, so this is it. This is the day I can't do it anymore because I feel like crap as soon as I wake up. But I keep doing it because I refuse to be beaten quite yet by Father Time. I'm clinging to that for now. I did want to ask about the draft this year for the Chiefs. Does it feel at all to you like there's less buzz for this year's draft than normal? I mean, when you pick 32 as opposed to, top 10, obviously there's a lot less hype from a national perspective. But given the fact that so much of the roster is coming back, they've won 2 straight Super Bowls. They made a couple of big moves in free agency, bringing back Chris Jones, signing Hollywood Brown, etc. Does it feel like there's a little less buzz for the draft this year for the Chiefs?
I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe in a way that it does, and maybe Brett Veach has a little bit of the answer there, which is just that it's maybe not as deep as draft as some years. I feel like it's maybe just a big buzz about certain positions. I mean, everybody seems to be, that I talk to, buzzing about wide receiver and what the Chiefs are going to do there. I mean, my next door neighbor, was asking me about what the Chiefs are going to do and, asking about a tight end and everything. So I don't know. I feel like there's still maybe some enthusiasm there, but you're right. I mean, maybe the TV ratings might be, pretty interesting on Thursday and Friday because, last year, obviously the buzz was so huge because the draft was in Kansas City. So maybe there's a little anticlimax this year. Maybe there's a little draft hangover. That's what it is. And 32 doesn't help, but you know what? If Brett Veach trades up in the first round, I think the excitement will heat up in a hurry.
What, if anything, really stood out to you the most about Brett Veach's Zoom conference earlier today?
When I asked him about, the possibility of moving up in the first round and, making a dramatic move, not just, to like 22 or something for a guy like Trent McDuffie, but, going up into the top 10, top 15, if there's an elite player that's available and has fallen. Because honestly, I mean, there's a chance that there could be some really good players because, there's some projections now. 5 quarterbacks might go early in the top 10. And I know, like the Chargers, new GM talking about, hey, if 4 quarterbacks go in front of us, it's like we have the first pick in the draft at 5. That could create some real mayhem at the top of the draft because now you could be looking at one of the top 2 or 3 tackles or the top 2 or 3 receivers or the top tight end all of a sudden is available between 10 and 15. And if that happens, what was intriguing to me also about that answer was Brett saying that, hey, yeah, if, one of the top 5, 6 players in the draft all of a sudden is available in the team, I got to get the sign off on from the owner. And that's obviously because they'd have to trade a first round pick. Brett Veach doesn't have to go to Clark Hunt for every single trade, but if he's going to trade a first round pick, he needs to sign off from the owner. And the fact that he said that, yeah, they tried to do it once before and everybody signed off, but they just couldn't get the deal done. I desperately now want to know who that player was.
I mean, it's got to have. Do we know around what time that was?
I mean, we really don't. We just know it would have been sometime in the Brett Veach era, and I can't imagine it would have been 2018 because he just didn't have the draft picks to do it. I mean, and I almost feel like 2019 it maybe was because he didn't have the draft picks to do it. Maybe it was, maybe they're trying to go up and get Trent McDuffie before even earlier than they did because I mean, obviously I know that they thought he was an incredible player. So it had to be something where, and maybe, hey, it could have been even 2020 when they took Clyde. Maybe they really wanted to jump up and get something done.
Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com is our guest, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline, as he does every Friday at this time on 580 Sports Talk as our Chiefs insider. You can read what Matt writes at ChiefsDigest.com. You can read what he writes 280 characters at a time on Twitter at Matt Derrick. Matt, does it feel like the prevailing winds are blowing towards the Chiefs drafting an offensive tackle with their first pick?
Yeah, it certainly feels that way. I mean, my most recent mock draft, I had taken a wide receiver. I feel less confident in that than I did 24 hours ago. It's still a chance. I mean, even when Brett Veach was talking about the different positions and what they're looking for, he still used the word competition at left tackle and not necessarily starter. And, and part of it is that they do like Wanya Morris and they would like to, have somebody around to push him. And if that's a rookie, if it's a veteran, I think they'd be fine either way. But yeah, I mean, and especially when you start hearing, like a Peter Schrager, who's obviously more connected to the Chiefs front office than just about any national, figure and reporter, start talking about a wide receiver at 32 that's probably more of a late second kind of guy. I feel like it's almost a smokescreen that the Chiefs are going a different direction. And if they were interested in trading up, I mean, there's no doubt, receiver or tackle makes the most sense in the top 15. But probably tackle, because I can't imagine any of the top 3 receivers slipping by 10. But if a tackle does, if there's, either one of, I think, maybe the top 3 or 4 tackles available in the top 15, that might be somebody that's worth going to go get. So when Brett Veach talks about going up and moving up in the draft and maybe making that kind of move in the teams, I think it would be for a tackle.
If the Chiefs do not go receiver and tackle in some order in their first 2 picks, 32nd and 64 as it currently stands, what position do you think they would be willing to take if one of those 2 and not fill at the expense of filling one of those 2 obvious needs with one of their first 2 picks?
Yeah, I think the most obvious ones to me would be on the defensive line, either a tackle or an edge. And remember right now, they've only got 2 defensive tackles under contract and under team control for 2025. That's Chris Jones and Neil Farrell. So that's still a need, even though they brought everybody else back. They could certainly use some future depth at defensive tackle, and edge is the same way. I mean, even though they still believe in Felix and Adike Uzama and aren't giving up on him, and they brought Mike Dana back, you're not going to have Charles Omenihu at the beginning of the season. You might not have 100% Charles Omenihu at all at any point this year, depending on how he recovers from that ACL. So that to me is always a possibility, especially just because of the depth of the draft. It feels like there's some players at both those positions that could be available in the 2nd and 3rd rounds that would be good players. And I thought another thing that kind of ties into this was interesting to me because, Brett was talking about how there's a drop off, and that maybe they're not really excited about anybody after the 4th round. And, the 5th, 6th, 7th rounds are all kind of indistinguishable. Maybe it's a lot of older players that they wouldn't have as much interest in. That to me is a pretty good indication that those late round draft picks are just currency to move up. So if they need to move up from 61, 64, 95, if they need to move up from any of those spots, they've got some later round picks and they got that 3rd round from Tennessee to do it.
Matt, you published Mock Draft 2.0 at ChiefsDigest.com today, your second swing at a 7-round Chiefs mock draft. And you've got a trade for the Chiefs moving up 7 spots, number 25, to take LSU's Brian Thomas Jr. What do you like about that player? How do you think he fits with the Chiefs?
Yeah, that to me was it was a pretty good example of a case that, Brett Veach talks about having 16 to 18 players with a first round grade. I think Thomas is probably one of those. He would be one of mine. Just a really talented receiver. He can do a lot of things well. Would be a guy who would really fit in with the Kansas City offense. Has good size, good catch radius. There's a lot of comparisons between him and T. Higgins, and I think that's something that a lot of Chiefs fans would respond to and say, okay, you know what? You've seen it in Cincinnati, and you hear it a lot. Hey, if the Chiefs had their own Jamar Chase, their own T. Higgins, this would be a different offense, and it absolutely would. So you throw a guy like that out on the field with Hollywood Brown, with Travis Kelce, with Rashee Rice. Oh man, now you've got 4 targets on the field that I think you really pick your poison if you're a defender about who are you going to double, who are you going to be worried about. I think that'd be really tough.
We're joined by our Chiefs insider, Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. And between what Brett Veach said earlier today about the cornerback position and the depth they have on their roster already, and your mock draft where you have them selecting one in the 7th, do you think it's going to be a late round corner pick rather than a 5th round pick?
I mean, I feel like it, if for no other reason than, we talked about it. I mean, it makes the most sense for the Chiefs in their first couple of picks to come out with a tackle and a wide receiver. That just is the most obvious need. And those were the first 2 needs that Brett Veach went to today. But, other than Trent McDuffie, which was, obviously a great pick, and that was just, a case of a player that they had a first round grade on falling, are there first round corners that are out there that you could see falling? Well, one, I mean, might be some scouts will tell you that there's only 1 or 2, corners with a true first round grade. There's other good corners that might be available even at 32, but are they first round caliber? No, they're probably in that second tier, of maybe 30 to 40 players that are good players, but there's something about them that doesn't just tell you that they're a guaranteed player. But the Chiefs have had so much success with taking mid-round, late-round, undrafted players and having Dave Merritt turn them into something that they need. That I don't know that you actually really desperately need a corner, because I think they have good depth. I think you want to be prepared for injuries and, eventualities, like maybe Najee Johnson's not going to be as good as he looked last year before the injury. But at the same time, Dave Merritt seems to be able to take anybody and turn them into a productive player. So yeah, if you can find somebody in the late rounds or undrafted that Merritt can coach up, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Finishing things up with Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. It's our Chiefs insider here on 580 Sports Talk. Matt joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Make sure you're following him on Twitter at Matt Derrick, and of course checking out his work over at ChiefsDigest.com. Matt, in your mock draft, you had Will Shipley, the running back from Clemson, in the 4th round going to Kansas City. That is a name we have seen a lot. I like that fit a lot for the Chiefs. Why do you like Will Shipley there? And just in general, what do you think the Chiefs will be looking for in a running back in this year's draft?
Yeah, I mean, to me, what are the Chiefs always going to be looking for in a running back? I mean, I think they would like to have a Kareem Hunt clone. We saw what happens when you put a running back like Kareem Hunt into this offense in 2018. It took it to a different level. Absolutely did. And that's not a knock on Isaiah Pacheco or anything. It's just really an acknowledgement of what kind of a special player that Kareem Hunt was. Will Shipley's really interesting to me because his size is almost identical. He's like a half-inch taller and 10 pounds lighter than Kareem was when he was coming out of Toledo. His measurables otherwise, I mean, his drill numbers and athleticism are all slightly better. He's a little faster than Kareem was, maybe not quite as strong, but definitely faster. And when you look at it that way, like, okay, you're pairing a really fast, running back with really good contact balance, average, 5 yards plus a carry in college. Those are all really nice numbers to pair with an Isaiah Pacheco, who's more of a thunder guy. Now, this could be your lightning guy. But even if it doesn't fit, I mean, even if you're just saying what's the low end of the poll for a Will Shipley, the lower projection is that, hey, you know what, he'd be just a decent third down back or a change of pace back. Well, that you're describing Jerick McKinnon. I mean, you're talking about really a younger, cheaper version of McKinnon, not as experienced, so he needs that seasoning. But that to me is kind of the low end versus the high end. High end is you could have a really, first-rate caliber starting running back to pair in your backfield with Pacheco. And at the lower end, if it doesn't work out, maybe you still have a productive third down back.
All right, to revisit a point we've already talked about, Matt, over under 2.5 trades that the Chiefs make this coming weekend.
Oh, wow. You know what? 24 hours ago, I think I would have taken the under. I think I'm going to go over on this one because I think I think Brett's going to be in a trading mood. I think there's a couple places where I think he's going to try and move up. I think he's probably going to get an offer to move down at some point. So I'll say there's going to be 3, and I think it's going to be 2 up and 1 down.
How does Brett Veach handle draft day? Because we know he likes to move, and we've already talked about it today. We've seen his experience in the past. You traded, 4 times or at least 3 times last year during draft weekend. Does he just get kind of bored during the war room hours of the draft?
I don't know if it's that as much as that he is so energetic. I mean, he is an energizer bunny, and I think that even more so during like the draft week, and we see it when he's during rookie mini camp and he's out there talking to us. He just loves this part of the game. I mean, he's always a high energy guy as it is, but I think he just hypes it up even more. So I don't know if this just gets bored. It's just that he's so hyper focused and it just gets into it so much and is so aggressive that I mean, if he was a poker player, he's a guy who's never limping into a pot. He's going to be raising or re-raising every single time. So I don't think it's a boredom thing. I think it's just energy and aggression. That's Brett Veach in a nutshell.
All right, Matt, we've got about a minute here. I just saw this prompt on Twitter, so I want to ask it to you as well. What is the one draft pick or draft prospect from your time covering the NFL or covering the Chiefs that you were so certain about that you missed on?
Oh, that I was so certain about that I missed on. Oh, wow. There's, I mean, my classic one was, of course, that I thought that the Chiefs should have taken Deshaun Watson over Patrick Mahomes. So,
I think a lot of people had Watson over Mahomes at the time. I think that one worked out. I think that's one of those ones that we're usually like, okay, I'm cool being wrong about that one.
Yeah, wasn't a terribly wrong one, but I know that one. Yeah, me being a little hesitant and thinking, gosh, I think the Chiefs could have gotten Mahomes later in the first round, and then realizing no, because there were some other smart people who saw it too, and they weren't going to let him fall to 27. Yeah, I would definitely call that one wrong.
Matt Derrick covers the Kansas City Chiefs for ChiefsDigest.com. That's where you can find all of his great work, including Mock Draft 2.0. Go check that out right now at ChiefsDigest.com. Make sure you're following Matt on Twitter as well, at Matt Derrick. He joins us every Friday right here on 580 Sports Talk on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Matt, enjoy the final few days building up to the draft. Enjoy the first round, and we'll talk to you next week mid-draft.
Sounds great. Appreciate you guys. Take care.
That's Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com, the best of the best when it comes to covering the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm with him. I think Brett Veach is going to be moving all up and down the board. I do think he gets bored. I think he just, let's have some fun. Let's mix it up a little bit. We'll talk some more Chiefs and some more NFL draft to lead off the 4 o'clock hour, plus what is wrong with you. And we'll talk to Tim Fitzgerald for the Wildcat Wrap-up. It's all coming up after the news here on 580 Sports Talk. now it's the 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. We're halfway home on this Feel Good Friday edition of the show. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis here with you today. Thanks for hanging out with us. Appreciate Matt and Derrick for joining us for our Chiefs Insider, as he does every single Friday on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. You can join us on our Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429. You can also find us on YouTube, 580 Sports Talk, the name of our YouTube channel, the name of the show. Obviously, just search for it on YouTube. Go subscribe to the channel while you're there, and you can watch along with the program. Had one comment right after we were done talking to Matt from Beyond the Grave, Len Dawson, in the YouTube comments.
Lenny Dawson, thank you for listening. We appreciate it.
I asked Matt how many trades over under 2.5 for the Chiefs during the draft. Lenny Dawson on YouTube says under. And if you're listening on the radio, I'm not kidding. This our friend listening to the show today, watching on YouTube, their account is Lenny Dawson
with a picture.
Yeah,
Lenny Dawson.
So you know it's him.
Verified. How do you verify that, Elon? Let's get to our Choose Your Trip keyword for the 4 o'clock hour. The Alpha Media Choose Your Trip contest. You've been hearing about it for 2 weeks now. If you win, Alpha Media is going to pay for you to take a trip anywhere you want to go. Anywhere. They're going to pay for your airfare, your hotel, your luxury hotel, I should say. All those details are on our website, 580wibw.com. Click on the link to choose your trip, and then you can enter this keyword. It is good for just the 4 o'clock hour. This keyword is guide. 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 So enter that right now at 580wibw.com. By the way, our YouTube commenter, Lenny was my childhood hero. Man, I believe it. I'm sure there are a lot of Chiefs fans who grew up loving Len Dawson.
But only one snagged the username.
That's right. Only one got the name on YouTube. He was awesome. Len Dawson was so cool.
Yes. There was a reason they called him Lenny the Cool.
Well, yeah.
And it was not because he ran a low body temperature.
No. I'm trying to think of guys who just have that coolness about them now. Like, Patrick Mahomes is cool because he's just kind of a normal guy who also is the most talented quarterback we've probably ever seen. But I don't know that he necessarily oozes, like, everybody turns their heads when he walks into a room kind of cool.
Right. It's that prototypical, like, high school star quarterback, sort of the guy that everybody in high school looked up to in, like, the old movies. You know that archetype.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know how many NFL quarterbacks fit that archetype today. Definitely not Aaron Rodgers. He's like he's the star quarterback who, doing some funny drugs with the kids.
Yeah.
On the hill across the street from the school during his off hour.
Yeah, no, not him. I think the one that pops into my head, and Lenny on YouTube agrees, Burrow.
Yes.
Joe Burrow's got that the it for coolness.
Sure.
And it all goes back to after winning the national championship with the cigar.
The cigar, yeah.
That just defines coolness right there.
He's got it. I don't know how many other if there are any others that have that right now.
There's a bit of goober to a lot of the star quarterbacks or the upper level quarterbacks in the league, or guys who have been top tier or won at a high level, like Russell Wilson or Kirk Cousins or Jared Goff, or even Josh Allen's he's a little goobery. Like, I say that affectionately. Like, I don't think, what a dork, what a loser dork. No, like,
I kind of think that about Russell Wilson.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
Hey, lay off my guy.
Hey, look, he's a winner, great quarterback, all of that. Just kind of a geek.
But like Matthew Stafford doesn't give you that.
The argument you
Justin
could make,
Herbert doesn't give you that.
The only reason I think you could give the argument for Stafford is that the nickname Frat Stafford did not come from nowhere.
Yeah. But there's a difference
like,
between being fratty and being cool. You can be one without being the other.
Matt Stafford
the
is
coolest
dad
thing
who wears his Letterman jacket cool. Not like sick leather jacket, riding a motorcycle, smoking American spirits cool.
The coolest thing I think he did was when his shoulder was basically gone and he comes back in and throws a touchdown pass.
Yeah, like football cool.
Yes,
for sure.
But not like actual personality cool.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Or outworded for coolness.
No, there's not a lot of that in the NFL right now. By the way, we have another comment here in the video feed. This one actually comes from Twitter. This is from Twitter user at John Sherman's new ballpark, who says, "You all should never criticize my Royals again." Sorry, John.
Hey, they keep winning. We'll keep saying nice things.
Yeah, happily. I have been waiting a long time to say nice things about the Kansas City Royals. So for now, at John Sherman's new ballpark, we're on the good side.
That's not even his at.
That's his display name.
You know what his at is?
What?
At Kaufman Ghetto.
Okay. Well, thank you, Kaufman Ghetto, for
we appreciate you watching.
As terrible as that website has become, there are occasionally things that still really get me to laugh on it. Appreciate all you guys who are watching along. YouTube feed is 580 Sports Talk, at 580 Sports Talk on Twitter, or WIBW News on Facebook. You can watch the video at all of those different websites. Wanted to get to a couple other pieces from around the NFL draft, a few regarding the Chiefs. Another mock draft Friday for you. We'll get to our final mock draft Monday coming up on next Monday. It's just a few days away. Will Brinson of CBS Sports came out with his one single round mock draft. Number 32 overall. He has the Chiefs sticking there, going with a wide receiver, Malachi Corley from Western Kentucky. His little write-up here. The Chiefs wrap up the first round by grabbing a wide receiver, which Chiefs fans might call lazy, but let's be honest, it makes way too much sense here. I'm going to disagree with Will Brinson. I don't know a single Chiefs fan who would call that lazy. That makes a whole lot of sense, actually. I would not take Malachi Corley in the first round. I think his potential set of outcomes has a way too much variance for me to say that's worth a potential fifth round option and all the money that comes with a first round pick. I would not do that.
Yeah, I don't think this is a very good mock draft. He's got Ladd McConkey in the top 20. I'm sorry. That's not happening.
No, that stinks. That's not good at all.
He's got the draft's best cornerback dropping to Green Bay at 25. Like,
oh, never mind. Good pick.
Quinyon Mitchell.
Good draft.
Yeah, I don't think it's a very good mock draft.
He does have his Xavier Worthy still on the board, who I would take there instead of Corley.
Yes, I would too.
I don't think Worthy's a perfect prospect, but I think
now has he got movement on Jaden Daniels? That's in the headline.
He has Jaden Daniels falling to 5th.
Yeah. There was a little bit of odds movement on Daniels as the number 2 overall pick at FanDuel, I think, this morning. He's now minus 140 to go number 2 overall. Drake May is plus 105. Now there are some rumblings out there that Jaden Daniels wasn't exactly thrilled with the Commanders' admittedly very stupid process of having all of the quarterbacks like hang out together like it was a reality show.
They went to Topgolf.
Yeah, right down the street from the facility.
It's like what was the one Next? It was like the remember the dating show Next
on MTV?
Vaguely.
MTV,
Vaguely.
Yeah. So it was like one person would date like 4. I think it was 3. It might have been 3 on the show, but there were 3 prospective matches. They were on a bus, and the first one would get out, introduce themselves, and they'd start a date. And whenever the contestant was tired of the date for whatever reason, they just go,
yes.
Next. It was really good. Sometimes like a guy would get off the bus and one would go, no, next.
That's terrible.
Yeah, I can't imagine recovering from that, frankly. Like you'd have to change your name and move to Tibet.
For what it's worth, his top of his draft, Will Brinson at CBS, Caleb Williams 1, Drake May 2, JJ McCarthy going 3 to New England. I mean, that's come on. Marvin Harrison 4 to Arizona, and then Jaden Daniels slides to 5. Minnesota trades up to get him.
Thank you for correcting the record on the Top City Mail Supply text line for 785. I think it was 5 people total on the bus. Or you could have it confused with the 5th wheel.
Oh,
they also had that one show called like Parental Control or something.
That I do not remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what the Commanders did. They were nexting quarterbacks, and it is deeply weird. And I guess there is some noise from Daniels' camp that wasn't exactly thrilled with that whole process. So
phone just fell.
You okay over there?
Yeah, my phone just fell down.
Drake May, get ready to learn Beltway, buddy.
No, not really.
Is Raljon not considered the Beltway?
Is Ral what?
Where they have the stadium.
Yeah,
where
that's
FedEx Field is.
That's like the original
Commander Stadium.
I mean, yes, but you only go there 10 times a year. Their practice facility is not even close to the
what if
Beltway.
he wants to go to a Wizards game?
I guess he's not going to live in the Beltway
What
area.
if he wants to go to the Smithsonian?
Then yeah.
Then he would go to the Beltway.
But they always interview players and they're like, yeah, I only go to DC like for games, or like if I want to go to a Caps game or a Wizards game.
Do they all live in
Nationals game.
Arlington?
No, they all live out where I'm from. Literally, like out where I'm from.
Interesting. I also saw this yesterday from The Athletic. I was teasing this earlier. These mean nothing. Like, they're just pointless exercises, but I do think it's kind of interesting who the Chiefs ended up with. It's a redraft of 2023's draft. Who goes number one? Where do you move Bryce Young to? Where's CJ Stroud moved to? You can probably guess who else goes where. Unsurprisingly, they would flip CJ Stroud. Still had Bryce Young going number 2 overall. I do think Young is better than what he showed this past year in a bad situation, and takes out a lot of the trades and whatnot that happened on draft day. 32nd overall, or I'm sorry, last year was 31. Someone didn't have a first round pick. The Chiefs in this redraft ended up with Tank Dell, the wide receiver from Houston, who ended up in the 3rd round being drafted by the Texans. Nick Baumgartner of The Athletic says, one of my favorite players in last year's draft. Dell is small, but was extremely effective as a weapon for the Texans. In 11 games, averaged 2.2 yards per route run, which was second among rookies only to Puka Nacua. He did have a serious leg injury, but dang good player. I love Tank Dell. I think he's going to be so good for Houston long-term, working with CJ Stroud. I like Felix too, and it was an awesome story and a cool scene when he got drafted. I think he can be a useful player. If you gave me that choice, who would you rather have? I would take Tank Dell.
Yeah, I think I would rather have, right, yeah, the player for player, yeah, like taking need out of it. I think Tank Dell proved that he's the kind of talent that's going to make an impact for a while in the league. And we don't know that about Felix yet. I'm still high on him. I'm still optimistic, but we know that about Tank Dell, that he's going to be a guy in the league for a long time.
For what it's worth, for your respective favorite teams, he has the Seahawks taking Zay Flowers instead of Jackson Smith and Jigba.
And Jalen Carter instead of Devin Witherspoon, which I disagree with.
Yeah, Witherspoon's really good. He's a really good
Unless
player.
Witherspoon went earlier in the redraft and he did not. So,
for the Commanders, Spencer, he had Jordan Addison from USC, the wide receiver,
In the 2nd round?
in the 1st round, as opposed to Emmanuel Forbes.
Oh, you're talking about last
Redraft,
year.
redraft.
it's a redraft. Yeah.
So Emmanuel Forbes out.
I would have rather
Jordan
had
Addison.
that. I mean, but I don't know. Emmanuel Forbes just didn't seem like a fit, but he might be a better fit in this new scheme.
I would probably not draft a cornerback who, if he was in a stiff wind, would be blown over and would tumble down a hill.
He got benched for like 4 games.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
But I think the new scheme might be better fit for him.
Have to hope so, I imagine. Some notes from around the rest of the NFL draft. This report comes from friend of the program, Tony Pauline, formerly of Pro Football Network, currently writing for Sportskeeda, which is owned by an Indian company, like India.
Yes.
Known for their wrestling coverage, professional wrestling more than anything. So he's got a report from Broncos camp, having a lot of fun with the Broncos draft process. And according to friend of the program, Tony Pauline, says that the Broncos are reportedly willing to make a gigantic move to the very top of the draft. Not number 1. The Bears are going to keep Caleb Williams. But to make a move way to the top of the draft, in which they would include pick number 12, as well as star cornerback Patrick Surtain in the pursuit of going up and getting a great quarterback.
The detail on this is particularly rich for Chiefs fans. Sources tell me being Tony Pauline, not me being me, losing out on Mahomes has left an eternal bad taste in the mouth of Peyton. You will recall that the Saints, it has been widely reported that the Saints really wanted Mahomes. And that's why the Chiefs went up to 10 to get Mahomes, because they knew if they didn't get ahead of New Orleans, that's who New Orleans was picking. Recent word inside the league is that the Broncos coach is ready to mortgage the franchise's future to move up and select a quarterback. Once again, there's talk the Broncos will dangle cornerback Patrick Surtain II as part of a package to trade up for a quarterback. Which quarterback is Peyton targeting? I continue to be told, again, I is Tony Pauline here, that it is J.J. McCarthy. Peyton wants a quarterback with outstanding intelligence and the ability to quickly get rid of the ball, just like Mahomes, and he believes McCarthy is the best fit. The contingency plan is Bo Nix.
So there's the other funny detail would be, and I believe he mentions trading back and taking Bo Nix at some point, or at least that's a possibility. I will tell you this. If you want to go get McCarthy, you're probably looking at pick 4 as the best, or 5, because Arizona's not going to take a quarterback in all likelihood at 4, and the Chargers are not going to take a quarterback. They've got Justin Herbert. So one of those spots is where you have to go. If I am either of those teams, I don't need to negotiate. Yes. Yeah, deal. Give it. Make your offer and let's go.
Yeah.
I am absolutely taking Patrick Surtain. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, first rounder and a all-pro caliber cornerback. Yeah, you make that deal without thinking too hard about it.
When I don't even need to get a quarterback myself, yes. I don't even know how many other draft picks I need. I'll just take Surtain, and I'm fine paying him in a couple years. He's that good. That would be, I doubt that happens, but that would be ludicrous, to be honest with you. Speaking of that number 5 overall pick, the Chargers, according to some reporting here, in fact, it's the words of their new general manager. Did you know who the Chargers GM was? Could you have pulled this name off the top of your head?
No, I know they fired
they just hired
Tom Telesco and just hired a new one. I don't know his name.
Joe Ortiz.
Would not have gotten that.
No, I had no idea. I did not know they hired one. I had no recollection that they actually hired a general manager.
I thought it was just going to be Harbaugh, yeah.
So he said when, during his pre-draft interviews and press conferences, was asked about the scenario of trading down. He said, quote, it's too good of a deal in terms of what you're getting back. They have to make it attractive for us to move away from those players. The whole, it's a fair trade, it's a wash. I don't think that's a trade we're interested in. And I agree with him. I think that's a good take. If you've got the number 5 overall pick, and if you believe that the non-quarterback part of the draft begins with pick number 4, okay, so you're either getting Marvin Harrison, if the Cardinals want to go with Malik Neighbors, or an offensive lineman, or you're going to get Malik Neighbors or Ruma Dunze, or the best offensive lineman available. Why would you move out of that spot unless you are getting a massive amount of picks?
Yeah, and because if you move too far back, you're going to lose out on those guys.
Yep.
Unless you have an evaluation that leads you to believe that maybe you like Brian Thomas Jr. the best, and you think he'll be there at like 12. Trade down with Denver, which was what Tony Pauline was suggesting, that Denver could move up to 5. I don't know. I think they're a lot better served staying put. Like they need dudes. They've got the ability, I think, to get a player who's really going to make a difference for them. And I don't think that, even though that's not it hasn't been a great roster top to bottom, you don't hire Jim Harbaugh and go through a rebuilding year with Jim Harbaugh while Justin Herbert is your quarterback. You think you can do the quick fix. And if you're going to do a quick fix, it's not, we need to stockpile 3rd, 4th, 5th round picks and move down in the draft. No, you get the best dude with a top 5 pick that you possibly can.
Yeah, I am in agreement with you. So yeah. I imagine them being open to business makes sense, but there's too many good players at the top, especially for an offense that desperately needs playmakers. One final note here. Elliot Wolf, the general manager of the New England Patriots, speaking of the top of the draft and the quarterback, says that the Patriots are indeed open for business and are willing to make a deal out of the number 3 overall pick. Everybody pretty much expects that will be a quarterback selection. It will either be Drake May or Jaden Daniels. Will Brinson of CBS, however, believed it would be J.J. McCarthy. Says that the team likes the quarterbacks who are available, but they would be interested potentially, if there's a good deal that presents itself, for doing business and moving out of the number 3 overall selection. Again, if you're not sold on one of these guys, like if you're New England and your belief is we're just content with whichever quarterback is left, May or Daniels, if content is how you would describe it, I'm moving out. I'm making a deal.
That's a good point.
Because if you're not sold on that being your guy, don't do it. Because you know what that turns into? The Patriots of the last 3 years with Mac Jones, where we need a quarterback. He's the best one available. Let's just do it. And how'd that work out?
Not great.
He got traded for a 7th rounder to the Jacksonville Jaguars. You've got to be convinced that is your guy.
Yeah.
And if I'm not convinced, I would back up if I'm New England.
They've got Jacoby Brissett, Bailey Zappi, and Nathan Rourke on their roster at quarterback. Like that.
What a bunch of names.
Nathan Rourke.
Canadian Football League.
Ohio U, right?
He went to Ohio. Yep, played for the BC Lions.
And then Bailey Zappi of Western Kentucky lure.
Yeah, I mean, big
He's been
Rust Belt.
Big group of 5.
Yeah.
I think he's been in the league too long and been stinky enough as an NFL player to not have the shine of, hey, remember when he was dope at Western Kentucky? Because he was very dope at Western Kentucky.
Sick.
But he's been in the league for 2 years. We've seen his movies. He's not an NFL quarterback.
No.
Like, that's a quarterback room where you're drafting a guy. Like, you're set up to draft a guy, take a guy. Like, that to me, that doesn't make a lot of sense unless they would only move to 6 or 7. I don't see that being the case. And then that doesn't make any sense to me. I would be very, very shocked if the Patriots moved out of number 3.
I would too, but I don't know. It depends on what you think about these quarterbacks. If the guy you want's not there, I think you have to consider it, because getting stuck to a nobody is.
And because at the same time, and I've said this over and over, the only quarterback I am sold being a franchise changer is Caleb Williams. I'm not 100% on any of these guys. I think that's a ceiling for a guy like Drake May or Jaden Daniels, but how often do you get a guy to their ceiling?
It's a good question.
And how likely is it that these guys get to their ceiling? And I don't think it's terribly likely, again, for any of them but the number 1 overall pick.
We've got What Is Wrong With You coming up on the other side of this break, and then we'll talk to Tim Fitzgerald for the Wildcat Wrap-up on 580 Sports Talk. Let's find a weekly winner real quick here in What Is Wrong With You before we get to Tim Fitzgerald. Our winner for the week, I called it 37 years down the drain, the cop in Massachusetts who was at a school in the bathroom left his gun on the coat rack in the stall, held on by the trigger guard, and you'll never believe it, it went off.
Probably the first time that it ever happened in 37 years, but also probably the last.
37 years. My story is going to take us to Port Orange, Florida, where a man who was wearing sunglasses at night asked officers if it was okay for him to crack open a beer shortly before he was arrested.
Reasonable question.
The man had allegedly fired a gun during a dispute with a neighbor. The police said officers responded to a dispute just before 9 p.m. Tuesday. Body cam video shows the police, from the police, shows the complaining neighbor alleging that his neighbor drove by, opened his window, and, quote, was telling me he was going to shoot me. At that moment, a shot can be heard in the area. You see what I mean? The complaining neighbor says. Several others were outside at the time of the shot. Officers followed the sound and found the suspect, Brett McPeak, outside his residence. That's him, I'm telling you, a woman can be heard saying. An officer directs McPeak to show him his hands and stay where he is. McPeak said, I'm cracking this beer, okay? The officer asks McPeak if he had any firearms, and he says no. The officer asked, are there any inside? And he said yes. Speaking over his radio, the officer said McPeak, quote, has 2 beers in his hand. McPeak then said, this beer is cold, sir, and I want to drink it. Come check me. The officer declined, and McPeak said, well, I'm going to drink this beer. Is that cool? McPeak insists he's done nothing wrong, then complies with the order to keep his hand up and is arrested without incident. He was not in possession of the gun when taken into custody, but a search warrant executed at his property turned up 2 handguns, including a .38 special with a spent shell casing. He's being charged on aggravated assault with a firearm and using a firearm while under the influence.
Yeah, we're guessing that's not his first cold one of the night.
I'm going to crack this beer. Is that okay?
Hey, real quick, before you get all policey around me, the mountains are blue, and I just want to enjoy it while the mountains are still blue.
You know what that means, brother. All right, Dan, what do you got? I wish we had a little more time. I wish I could have given you some room to stretch your legs on this one.
No, it's all good. So you've done some air travel, all of us in our lives, done a little air travel. So prior to the tragedy that was September 11th, it was not uncommon for young children to be given tours of the cockpit. Like, you ever seen the movie Airplane?
Yeah.
Yeah. And little Jimmy goes into the, you ever see a grown man naked? You know, you meet
like movies with gladiators in them.
Ever been to a Turkish prison? Anyway, so they don't let you do that as much anymore. Like, you're not supposed to go into the cockpit if you are not on the flight crew, so to speak, even if your flight is chartered, even if it's a chartered flight for a professional sports team. So the Federal Aviation Administration is not thrilled that an United Airlines flight crew allowed Colorado Rockies hitting coach Hensley Mullins to sit in the pilot seat in the cockpit while the team's chartered flight to Toronto was at cruising altitude. How did they know that this happened? Video was posted to social media by Hensley Mullins, who wrote, had some fun in the cockpit on our flight from Denver to Toronto. Thanks to the captain and the first officer that allowed me this great experience. The FAA and United Airlines have each issued statements. United Airlines says, we're deeply disturbed by what we see in the video, which appears to show an unauthorized person, in the flight deck at cruise altitude while the autopilot was engaged. A spokesperson for the FAA says it does not comment on the details of open investigations, but noted that federal regulations restrict flight deck access to specific individuals. The Rockies have no comment. Hensley Mullins, second-year hitting coach for the Colorado Rockies, is 57 years old. He played professional baseball for 17 years, all over the world, and has been a coach and manager, again, all over the world for the last 20-plus years. How long do you think it took him to get up the courage to say, I want to go in the cockpit? Do you think they'll let me in the cockpit?
Maybe all of those 20 years.
All 37 years of a baseball life sitting in chartered airlines thinking, man, it'd be sweet to sit at the controls of one of these bad boys. And then they finally let him do it, and he blows it by posting on social media. Now he's going to get those pilots in trouble. They do anything wrong. They let somebody live his dream, and now they're going to get fired.
Yeah, you can't be posting that. Although maybe he didn't know that you would get investigated by the FAA. Maybe he did it as a kid. I did it as a kid. I remember going into the cockpit as a kid.
Yeah, I got like little wings on a United flight.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can't do that anymore. There was a thing that happened where adults came into the cockpit of several planes on the same day, and it was very, very bad. And now they don't let you do this anymore. But
I know nothing but that.
Yeah, that's true.
Hensley Mullins, though, would not let those things stand in the way of his dream. And look, man, you got to let this man have some sliver of joy in his life, because the Rockies offense stinks and they're 4-15.
I'm going to go with this one today because now you're probably screwing over other people, and that's not good. But I do not think it beats our weekly winner.
I agree with you.
Do we think Hensley Mullins likes movies about gladiators?
You ever hang around the gymnasium? We've got the Wildcat Wrap-up with Tim Fitzgerald next on 580 Sports Talk. A rare Friday edition of the Wildcat Wrap-up here on 580 Sports Talk. Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. You can find all of Fitz's great work over at GoPowerCat.com. Make sure you are checking out the GoPowerCat YouTube channel as well, and you can find him on Twitter at Life of Fitz. Fitz, thank you so much for joining us before you get off to your rip-rolling weekend here.
Yeah, I have a lot planned. Hold on, I don't have a damn thing planned. My bad.
Hey, that sounds like good enough plans for me.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Well, Fitz, we do appreciate you being flexible with us this week. We got plenty to get to, both basketball and football, and a lot of portal stuff to get to in particular. I want to start with basketball. Two good additions for K-State so far. I like Doug McDaniel a lot. I think C.J. Jones looks like he's probably going to be a solid bench piece to transfer from Illinois, Chicago. Where is the level of desperation right now in terms of getting other pieces, and specifically a forward or a big man? Because I think some people think, hey, the portal is open. It's a free-for-all. I'm not even going to worry until the season starts about who's on the roster. I'm not worried at all. And then there are some people who, if you miss out on a single target, it suddenly becomes our coaching staff stinks. We can't compete. This is a disaster, etc. What do you think is the staff's level of concern right now with what they've been able to do or not do in the portal?
On a scale of 1 to 10, maybe 2. I mean, we're still early in this process of sifting through all the portal players. There's just so many guys still out there. Look, it's really competitive for big men, and naturally it would be. But this year it just seems to be that way. So they're going to have to find a couple. They want to find a frontline guy that can start, and maybe a more developmental piece. and then probably another, big wing, a 4 type player. That's what they're after. It's going to take a little while to get through it. Look, this is a program that's waited until August in the past to get players. So I don't think they'll be that patient with too many scholarships, but they're also looking for the right fit. The locker room is very important to Jerome Tang.
Baba Miller, the big man, 6'11", kind of I don't know if he'd be a true 4 or 5 with this K-State team next year should he commit, but the big man from Florida State, know he took a visit this past weekend. Sounded from what we had heard like it went well. You always hope for that at the very least. Does that feel like a player who, if he committed, would be the kind of fit K-State's looking for?
Probably not the true center they want, but certainly will fill a need. Get out on, honestly, kind of replicate what Naquan Tomlin did as the 4. Not a real power player, but certainly capable of making things happen with athleticism. And I know they like him a lot. They really want him. But if he's still taking visits, just a wild frontier out there. You never know what's going to happen.
With a couple more weeks still left to enter the transfer portal, have you guys over at Go PowerCat heard anything about any other current roster guys who are maybe not for sure entering, but have considered maybe trying to enter the portal and see if there's something else out there?
I haven't heard of any. That doesn't mean there won't be. I mean, sometimes the kid doesn't tell anyone, and then suddenly they're in the portal. But I don't foresee much more portal action, as I sit here today, at least, for football or basketball, and the outgoing nature of portal.
Our guest is Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com, and he joins us every week on the program for the Wildcat Wrap-up on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Typically Wednesdays, but gracious enough again to join us on this Friday. You can check out Fitz and his great staff's work at GoPowerCat.com, part of that 24/7 sports network. You can follow Fitz on Twitter at Life of Fitz. When you talk about a classic big that maybe Baba Miller isn't, what is sort of the ideal mix you think for a Jerome Tang team in the post? Or have we kind of seen that over the last couple of years with, a veteran guy with some bulk like a Will McNair, Bebe Eziola kind of fit that mold, and then a more athletic type who can play the 5 like a David Gasson type? Is that sort of the prototype what Jerome Tang wants for his teams, and those are the kinds of guys he's trying to get in?
Yeah, I think we're seeing them trying to replicate a Baylor roster of old. We've got kind of a true center. You got a couple of them that just rotate through the game. Maybe you got some big guys, but they're able to run the court and get into the open floor. Even their bigs are able to run. So I think you're going to see a lineup with a true post, and then the 4 out. The guys that can be on the perimeter, whether they're 6'10", 6'11", or 5'11", like Doug McDaniel. I think that's just kind of what he's after, and try to be very athletic. I don't think they were as athletic as he wanted this past season, so there's a real focus on that.
There is also some reported interest in Villanova transfer Brendan Hausen. It's been reported that he is going to visit K-State this weekend. Hausen obviously brings shooting. How important is that for K-State to improve upon an aspect of their game that really, I think a lot of people expected they'd be better at last year than they ended up being?
Yeah, and they realize that they're going to have to zero in on some shooters. And honestly, it surprises me they're going after another non-frontline person, more backcourt help, because they're pretty deep. And that might be an indication Quez Glover isn't going to be able to play or isn't returning. I don't know. That's just kind of trying to read the tea leaves, because they certainly have needs on the front line that have to be addressed. And, a couple of guys that could still leave along with Glover, of course, Gasson, who is a big, and Arthur Kaluma, who's kind of in that swing position that is very important to this offense. So, adding another, 6'2" shooter really doesn't seem to fit a need, but that's from knowing what the needs are right now. There's something probably evolving we're not aware of.
Shifting gears, Fitz, from the basketball side to the football side. Jevin Banks entered the transfer portal earlier this week, and it leaves K-State a little bit light at the defensive tackle position in their 3-3-5 scheme. Uso Seumalo returns, and Damon Alalio has played some, the local kid from Manhattan. Obviously, they've got some offers out to some defensive tackles. They've got one scheduled to make a visit. How does the K-State staff view the importance of that position? Is it a position where they feel like they've got to have a lot of bodies, or it is a position where they feel like if they've got two really good ones, they can call it good?
Yeah, they definitely need a third. I mean, those guys tend to get hurt. They're in so much the middle of the traffic, so they want to make sure they have one. And they really are trying to focus on a true nose tackle, a big guy, not a tweener, kind of like Javon Banks was. And a guy, he wanted to play a lot of defensive end. Well, he wasn't even cracking the depth chart of defensive end. They're loaded right now at the end. So he was going to be, the second or third nose tackle. So he hopped into the portal. But I think K-State was looking at a nose tackle even before he decided. I think they decided he wasn't going to be effective enough in that position, and they needed another really big body to kind of anchor that defense, and maybe one that's got a few years. But it's actually kind of a clogged up area there with nose tackles in the portal. There's quite a few D tackles, nose tackles out there right now, so it's kind of a buyer's market. So it'll be really fascinating to see what K-State does.
We're joined by Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. And Tim, spring practice wrapped up last weekend. What were your overall takeaways from the development that you saw from Avery Johnson throughout the spring?
The first takeaway was they got out of it with no major injuries, which is always good. Everything is supposed to be players returning by summer's end to full, workouts with a few exceptions. But Avery really seemed to progress under the coaching of Matt Wells, who, brought a different view of things. And I think Matt Wells has been good to give Avery another voice, another teacher for that position, and talk about, footwork and how to, best be safe but effective in the running game, and bring in some new route trees from his playbook that are going to be worked into K-State system. So I'm excited to see what Avery does with Matt Wells and in this new offense. I think the offense is kind of being tailored around him right now, and I think it should be pretty exciting.
Speaking to that point about Avery Fitz, and I'm sure we're going to talk about him a bunch throughout the offseason and certainly when we get to fall camp, but just for now, from what we saw from him this past year, from what you just mentioned, we saw from him at spring camp as well. What do you think are reasonable expectations for what he can do? And I don't know if I necessarily mean, statistical output, but is this the kind of guy who's got the talent and the coaching that we should believe he can be a top 3 or 4 quarterback in the league right away? Like, where are your early expectations for him as the full-time starter?
Yeah, there's some good quarterbacks in this conference.
Yeah.
I mean, you look down the road, Jalen Daniels, Utah has a good one. Arizona has a good one. Iowa State and West Virginia both have Warriors. There's good quarterbacks in this conference, and being in the top 3 would say a lot. I think he can be there. Number one, he's got to stay healthy, of course. And that's a true concern. They rarely get through a season with their number one healthy. And I think we're going to see them bring in another portal quarterback just to guarantee they have enough experience depth there to go with Avery. And also, just cut down on his mistakes. Don't make mistakes. Put yourselves in bad situations. And he's so athletic, he doesn't need to take many chances. And know when to take those chances on 3rd and long, or, know how to pick up the first down and get out of bounds without getting hit. Those are going to be the real measurements for Avery early in the season, if he's kind of picked up the nuances of the position. And if he does, and his arm is as accurate as we think it'll be, this is going to be a tough kid to stop.
Finishing things up with Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com. It is the Wildcat Wrap-up here on 580 Sports Talk. Fitz joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Go check out all the great work covering the Kansas State Wildcats at GoPowerCat.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. To get back momentarily to personnel, Fitz, is there anyone else that when you look at this roster for K-State that could really use some depth help, or could even maybe use a playmaker in this second portal window before we get to fall camp?
Yeah, I think they're going to go find a running back to, give a little experience with DJ Giddens. Again, just like quarterback, if you're injured at that position, you run out of experience immediately. And, you've got to kind of bolster those positions to make sure you can get through the season, and you've got a backup that can help you win games. So I think we'll see that added, but I know they're looking for another offensive lineman, a rotational piece, someone that can move between positions. And I think they're going to be really active with D tackle, as I said, and linebacker. There's some weird stuff going on in linebacker that isn't out yet that, people will find out about eventually, but it's a spot that is suddenly thinned out for K-State.
Obviously, we don't know what everyone's roster is going to look like at this stage because, again, the portal just reopened. But right now, where would you stack up DJ in regard to the other standout starting running backs of the Big 12?
He's got to be up there, but, he's also not a home run hitter. He's not getting to the open field and run away from people. He's a thick guy. He's got good speed, but not breakaway speed. So if he, gets a good enough lead, he's going to get to the end zone. He's just a workhorse, man. And in every way, he can pass block, catch the ball out of the backfield. It took him a while to pick up on the playbook, but he's done that now. He's just a reliable guy. And if he holds up to the season, he's going to get the ball about 20 times a game, probably. He'll be their main guy. And if they can bring in someone else, it'll be really good to give him some relief and have someone that can maybe replicate what he does in terms of being able to do a little of everything. Trayshawn Ward was a good pairing with him, and unfortunately Trayshawn moved on, so now they have to basically find someone to take that role up that Ward left vacant.
I was so impressed by how much he had grown as a pass catcher last season because we've told you before. We saw him in high school a bunch playing in the Centennial League at Junction City, and he was a good player, but I never really thought of him as a guy who could be a multifaceted back on more than, a swing pass or a screen. I was so impressed by how much improvement he had made in that area.
He runs good routes.
Yeah.
He's got really solid hands, strong hands. I am too. I've been a little surprised at how effective he is. Coming off Deuce Vaughn, who was such a threat in the passing game, you expect a big drop-off. And, there was a drop-off, of course, because no one's Deuce, but he just filled that role really well. He's an effective tool in the pass game, and that's going to mean a lot when you got Avery being able to run the ball like he can. To have that dual threat that, Avery could pull the ball down to run, but actually, get it back up there to throw it to DJ down the field. It's going to be really fun to watch.
Tim Fitzgerald covers the Kansas State Wildcats. In fact, he is the publisher of GoPowerCat.com. It's over at the 24/7 Sports Network. So much good stuff over there. Make sure you are checking out the GoPowerCat YouTube as well. Daily content, all sorts of good stuff over there from folks around the Big 12, talking to Brian Henley about all things going on with Big 12 sports. You can find Fitz as well on Twitter. At Life of Fitz is his handle there. Fitz, again, man, we appreciate you being flexible with the schedule with us this week, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, boys. Great to talk to you.
That is Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com. And as I always tell you, go be a VIP at 24/7 Sports. It is absolutely worth it. If you are just addicted to the message boards, great asset to have. Because when you can get the paid boards, you get a lot more good info than the absolute cluster that is the unpaid ones, the free boards. It is a terrifying place.
That's a fact.
I was amazed to find out that some of the big name, like Hogville, the big Arkansas board, is free. I did not know that until recently. That's terrifying. That is very, very scary to know that place is free to access, but also makes a whole lot of sense. We've got 1 hour left on 580 Sports Talk with you today. We're still taking your comments on the YouTube stream or Facebook or Twitter, wherever you're watching the video, and your texts to the Top City Metal Supply text line. In the final hour of the show, we'll get to today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. We'll preview the weekend series for the Royals and Orioles and much more. Also, we will have another keyword for you for the Alpha Media Choose Your Trip contest. All that is coming up once we get done with the local and national news right back here on 580 Sports Talk. the final hour of 580 Sports Talk for this week. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. He's Dan Lucero. He's Spencer Dupuis. We've got 1 hour left with you before we get to Royals baseball tonight. The Kansas City Royals taking on the Baltimore Orioles. Game 1 of 3 in the city of Fountains. 6:40 first pitch, 6 o'clock pregame start time. We've got our 580 Sports Talk headlines coming up here in just a matter of moments. We'll talk a little bit about this Royals-Orioles series as well. And we will take your texts to the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429. And your YouTube comments are welcome as well. 580 Sports Talk on YouTube is where you can find us. Feels like a good Friday to do an AMA. Let's do a little Ask Me Anything. If you've got a question, it can be about sports, life, favorite movie, anything. I don't care what it is. Recipes, whatever you want to ask, send it to the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429, or drop it into the YouTube comments, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. We'll get to those a little bit later on this hour. Anything you want. If it's crude, we can't read it, so don't be crude. And if you want one specific person to answer it, give a name, and we will answer those questions later on this hour. We haven't done an Ask Me Anything in a while.
No,
so,
it's been a few weeks at least.
So we'll fire one
I feel
of
like
those
it's
off.
been like a month.
Yeah.
Months, maybe.
Yeah, it's been.
I feel like the last time we did an Ask Me Anything was when Dan had to leave for basketball.
Yeah, it's probably
and
been
it was
since,
you and I for
yeah.
an hour and a half.
Yeah, since pre-state tournament, I would guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll do one this hour. If you've got any questions for us, again, 785-272-9429 or 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. My first headline, let's dive right on in. I've got the starting lineup for the Kansas City Royals today against the Baltimore Orioles. Leading off, Michael Garcia, not getting that extra day off. He's at third base today. Bobby Witt Jr. at short, hitting second. Vinny at first, hitting third. Salvi will be behind the dish tonight in the cleanup spot. Melendez in left. Nelson Velasquez DHing. Michael Massey, welcome back. He is your 7-hole hitter at second base. Hunter Renfroe hitting eighth and right. Kyle Isbell in the 9-hole tonight. He will man center field. All in support of Alec Marsh getting the call for the Royals today. The Royals number 5 starter, and going up against him on the Baltimore side. I need to pull this up really quickly. It will be Dean Kramer who gets the call for the O's tonight. Kramer on the year, 0-1, 4.96 ERA. Alec Marsh, 2-0, 4.32 ERA. 6:40 first pitch tonight, 6 o'clock pregame start time right here on 580 WIBW. Dan mentioned it a little bit earlier. In fact, it was yesterday when this came up, if I'm not mistaken. Nick Lofton has been optioned down to AAA. That was official yesterday during the off day. Michael Massey has been recalled from his injury assignment.
I've got a stat for you.
Bring it.
Entering today, this is per the Royals. They posted it all over social media today. 12 quality starts for the starting pitching staff is the most in majors entering play today.
That's pretty good.
Heads up. When you talk Alec Marsh, he's not your number 1. Certainly not your number 2.
No, I mean, he's your number 5.
Exactly.
You're solidly number 5. How many does Marsh have this season?
This is his 4th start of the year. His first one was quality.
That
might be his only one.
In case you had forgotten, that is 6+ innings, 3 or fewer runs.
Yes.
He's got 1. Yeah, his first one, 7 innings, just 1 run against Baltimore.
It's kind of funny because that does objectively feel like a pretty good line of demarcation between a good start and not. If you go 6 and you give up 3 runs, you've given your team a chance to win the game.
Uh-huh.
You didn't get too deep into the bullpen, and 3 runs is not an insurmountable margin. Also, if that's what you did with every start of your season, you would have a quality start every single time. You'd also finish with an ERA of 4.5.
Which generally you'd think of as very...
not good.
Fine. If that was Alec Marsh, you'd probably feel fine. As your 5th starter, you'd be okay with that.
If Alec Marsh has an ERA of 4.5 at the end of the year, that's a huge win for Royals pitching development.
Yeah, big.
Awesome.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dan. Go ahead.
No, I said it should be awesome.
Big opportunity here for Marsh, too, because, again, his best start came against Baltimore back in his first game of the season. Since then, he's allowed 7 earned runs in 9 2/3 innings against the White Sox and the Mets. So big bounce back opportunity today for Alec Marsh.
All right. First headline for me today. You guys want to buy a quarter of the Buffalo Bills?
Yes.
Let's all put our money together.
Yeah, right. Yeah, let's pool our resources because 1/4 of the Buffalo Bills are for sale. Buffalo Bills owner Terry Pegula is looking into a potential sale of a minority interest in the team, while emphasizing that no new investment would involve changing the Pegula family's controlling interest. The family has retained the law firm Allen & Company to explore the potential sale of a non-controlling minority interest. In a statement, the Pegulas say the continued commitment to Western New York, the new Highmark Stadium, our fans, and the other teams in the portfolio remains unchanged. The other teams of the portfolio are the NHL's Buffalo Sabres, and 2 teams in the National Lacrosse League and 1 team in the American Hockey League. The Pegulas bought the Bills for $1.4 billion in 2014. Forbes reported that the Bills are now worth $3.7 billion. So, little back of the napkin math here. If you are trying to sell a quarter of $3.7 billion, let me.
I've got it for you if you want it.
Yeah, go ahead. What is a quarter of that?
$925 million.
Okay, so divided by 3 guys in this room, we got to come up with $333,333.33 each, and then we can make this happen.
You said how much is it that there? How much is the total?
Total value of the team?
No, total value of the quarter.
Total value of the quarter is $925 million.
That is very. I guess it's not
achievable, right? We can do that.
It's achievable, but there is also another team with a very minority stake opening. That is the Steelers, because Josh Harris owns.
Oh yeah,
Steelers,
he had a
and it's
Steelers
still
share.
up for sale, which is valued at $4 billion for 4.8% of it.
4.8% of $4 billion?
No, 4.8% is $4 billion.
That can't be.
That's a lie. I'm reading that wrong.
Yes, you were definitely reading that wrong. 4.8% of
$4 billion, just for comparison.
That would be $192 million.
Oh, shoot.
I think we could
divide that the Steelers by next Monday.
Divide that by 3. All we need to come up with is $64 million.
Yeah, I think we could do that. That's more achievable than the Bills.
We're losing money if we don't, frankly.
Which one is going to make more money over the next 20 years? The Bills or the Steelers? It's got to be the Steelers, right?
I would think the Steelers, though. The Bills are opening up a new stadium. But still, like, your market size, your market share, the Steelers are worldwide.
Fan base is gigantic.
Huge fan base.
Also, a lot of ties overseas. I think they have the marketing rights in several countries.
Yeah.
Including Northern Ireland, because they've got the political connections over there. Yeah, we can do it.
Yeah.
I'll call my people.
All right. First headline for you, Spencer?
Find the funding.
Yesterday, John Rothstein broke some news about a non-conference, what was supposed to be a home and home between Duke and Kansas, according to Matt Norlander. John Rothstein says it's now going to be a neutral site game in November in Vegas, which is interesting because I feel like most people want Duke and Kansas to play at their respective home venues.
So there's a couple things that are at play here. One, they already play each other at least every third year anyway, because of the Champions Classic. That is also always at a neutral site, which takes away a lot of the zip on this. It sounds like this is going to be part of that NIL tournament MTE that's been talked about, which I guess makes one iota of sense. The other thing here, and I'm going to sound like a homer, and that's fine. In the next couple of years, KU, and in recent years too, has played at Indiana, at UConn this year, at
that game wasn't at UConn. That game was at Allen.
No, this year.
Oh, this year.
Like coming up.
Okay.
They owe the return trip.
Gotcha. You're talking about 24.
Interesting, because that's not even on here.
Yeah, or they might not be playing it this year, but they owe a return trip to UConn because they've already played the game at Allen Fieldhouse.
Yeah, but
they're playing at North Carolina.
Home.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, they're playing home and homes with Blue Bloods.
Yeah.
How often does Duke play a true road game out of ACC play?
Doesn't happen a lot.
No.
Not.
No, it does not.
Which is why it's becoming a neutral site.
And blame Duke. That is my point. Blame Duke.
But
if you want this to be home and home, it is Duke's fault.
If you look at the schedule non-conference as it's starting to take shape, Michigan State in the Champions Classic, that Duke game in Las Vegas, the start of a home and home with North Carolina, at Missouri, and your Big East Big 12 battle.
The last of the Big East Big 12.
Last.
There's a bummer. I've really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I have too. Been some good games.
But I guess with the Big 12 going to more conference games, it's a bummer, but I guess I get it.
Nice
more conference
non-conf.
teams too. You've got a lot of the league that can't match up.
Yes, that is definitely
That might
true.
be the bigger issue than because we haven't had a confirmed expansion of the basketball schedule.
By the way, for what it's worth, last year Duke played exactly one non-conference true road game, and that was because it was the ACC SEC Challenge, and they didn't have a say in the matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you could probably do that for the last 10 years. Stop being a coward.
Agreed.
Go play at an actual site. Come on. Next headline for me. Let's stick with the college sports world, shall we? Some news from college football, some rules changes. The NCAA has approved a set of changes that will make a few more similarities between the college game and the pro game, specifically adding in helmet communication at the FBS level. This was proposed and worked on during bowl season and is now going to be implemented. All the teams who did it said they liked it, even though it took some time to get all the systems set. And we're so used to doing this when we call in a play, and now we have to do that. So there were a bunch of delay of game penalties that were called during the bowl games when they sampled this. But overall, that's a positive. No complaints there.
Shout out to the Michigan sign stealer.
Yeah. Connor Stallions. Revolutionary. And they're also adding a 2-minute warning. This is bad. This is extremely bad. And here's the reason why. What are you gaining if you are the NCAA and you're college football at the high major level? What is being added to the game by adding a 2-minute warning?
Conferences are getting more money because you're going to take a break.
No, they're not adding a TV timeout.
They're not?
No.
Not adding a TV timeout? Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
You're not adding a TV timeout. You're NFL-izing the college game in another way for no real good reason.
Interesting. I would have thought commercial breaks.
I don't know. Maybe I guess it's a little bit of a give back to, the clock used to stop on first downs, made comebacks a little bit more possible in college games in a way sometimes they aren't in pro games. Maybe this is a little bit of a give back, like, okay, we'll give you a stoppage late half, late game. I don't know. I don't like it. I don't need more NFL style rules in college football. I enjoy college football on its own merits. So I'm not wild about the notion of a 2-minute warning, but it's not like this radical new thing we're not used to.
No, but I will say this. Even if you're not putting in a full 2-minute timeout or 3-minute timeout, it's still another stoppage. There's way too much time in college football today where it's all just stopped and no one's doing anything. There's way too much of that.
A texter from the 785 on the Top City Metal Supply text line makes an astute point that the clock rules themselves change when you go under 2 minutes. So to have a clean stoppage of play and say, from this point forward, from this stoppage of the game forward, the clock rules are different. I can make that make some sense.
All right.
But I don't love the clock rules changing in the first place. I think the old clock rules were fine. What did they get rid of? Like 4 plays?
Yeah, I think that's what it 4.4 or 4.6, something
like that. Yeah. I guess that adds up over the course of the season, but it didn't make games all that much shorter, and certainly didn't make the TV timeouts any shorter. So it didn't improve the product for me.
No, I would agree with that. It was very minimally noticeable, to be completely honest with you.
Next headline for me. Shall we do it? Shall we get to America's favorite segment within a segment? It is time for the playoff roundup. You can make sound effects too, Spencer, if you want. You can play along. There you go.
I think
that sounded more like a beer can opening, which I can respect. It's Friday.
That might be happening here in an hour or so. I might try and work some audio magic on Monday.
Hey,
like that.
We love the sound of that. Anyway, it is time for the playoff roundup. First, we'll get a quick look at the NBA. We already made our playoff predictions for the NBA's first round on yesterday's show, but tonight the play-in winds down with the number 8 seeds being determined in both the Western and Eastern conferences. First game of the night, we'll see the Bulls taking on the Heat. The Bulls, the 9 seed, the Heat, the 8 seed. The Heat will not have Jimmy Butler tonight. Alex Caruso says he'll play for the Bulls. That means I'm kind of leaning Bulls in this one to snag the number 8 seed. That would give them a first round matchup against the Boston Celtics. In the Western Conference, I'm sure the TV execs were really hoping we'd get Lakers Warriors here. Instead, nope, we get the Kings and the Pelicans will be without Zion Williamson. So for that reason, I am leaning towards the visiting Kings to snag the 8 seed. I think those injuries are going to be too much for the Pels and the Heat to overcome. There's not enough Heat culture in the world to overcome not having Jimmy Butler.
I would agree with that. And the one thing that gives me concern, just being a jaded fan, is putting expectations on the Bulls.
I understand that.
That's what worries me, is I had no expectations at all in the play-in game, the first play-in game, and they did just fine. And in fact, Kobe White was incredible. Now having actual expectations to win make me feel a whole lot worse.
Did you already get to that beer, Spence, or is that just ice in a different glass?
It's ice in a water.
We can hear that loud and clear, friend. Anyhow, that's the NBA. This weekend, the NHL playoffs get underway. And as we did yesterday for the NBA, let's pick the first round matchups. Give some predictions. Again,
we can't be confused.
You only have to defend yourself. Yes, everybody is listening closely to the rules here. Just make a pick. You only have to defend yourself if you're the lone wolf, if you're the only person picking a certain team in the matchup. Let's go ahead and start in the Eastern Conference with the Metropolitan playoffs. The top seed, the President's Trophy winners, the New York Rangers, best record, most points in the NHL. The number 1 seed in the Metropolitan taking on the second wild card team, Spencer's beloved Washington Capitals. Spencer, I know you're going to pick the Capitals. I'm picking the Rangers. They're the best team in the league. Are we going to make Spencer defend himself as a lone wolf, or are you on the Caps train, Brendan?
No, I'm absolutely not. I'm on the Rangers train.
Okay, Spencer, in brief, why are the Capitals going to win this series?
The Capitals are going to win this series because, one, this is giving me big 2019 Washington Nationals vibes.
Okay.
19-31 start. And obviously, there's not that many games compared in the NHL. But starting somewhere in the beginning of February, things just started to take a turn, and the turn for one specific person. And that person is going to be eventually the greatest goal scorer of all time in Alex Ovechkin. And he finished the regular season, I think, with like a .68 goals per, like if you averaged out from February until then, the .68 goals per game would have been what it was. They sold at the trade deadline. They were like, we're not going to do anything at the trade deadline. And they still made the playoffs. They had to win 2 in a row on back-to-backs to make the playoffs. Yeah, they did get in because, maybe John Tortorella was dumb and pulled his goalie. Yes, but I think they're going to win because of those factors combined. They don't have one of their best players of all time, Nicholas Backstrom. He's done for his career. TJ Oshie is champing through a year where he has back problems every other week. So that could be key if he goes down. But they have a young core developing with their old core, and it's going to meet, and they're going to win the series.
Team of Destiny vibes is what yes. You're trying to sell me. They were -37 in the goal differential this year. It's
yes.
One of the worst for any playoff team.
I might have a shirt soon that says that.
Well, all the best to the Washington Capitals, but you are the lone wolf in that series. The other Metropolitan Division first-round playoff series, the number 2 seed and Vegas favorites to win the Cup, according to FanDuel, the Carolina Hurricanes taking on the New York Islanders. Who you got, Spencer?
I have the Hurricanes.
Brendan?
Me too. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I've never been a huge hockey guy. I don't think I have watched a full 60 minutes of hockey since November.
I haven't watched a ton of hockey this year either. That's all right. You're among friends. I am going to pick the Islanders because Avalanche great Patrick Waugh is their head coach. And so I'm riding with St. Patrick. In the Atlantic Division playoffs, the Atlantic Division champion Florida Panthers, defending Eastern Conference champions, take on the first wild card team, the Tampa Bay Lightning. I will take the Panthers. Spencer, what say you?
Panthers.
They're hot.
All right, we got a sweep there. In the other Atlantic Division first round series, number 2 seed Boston Bruins against the number 3 seed Toronto Maple Leafs. Brendan?
Bruins.
I'm going with the Bruins as well.
I'm going with the Bruins too.
can't
I
pick
have
the Leafs.
I now have Bruins in the family with my sister's husband.
Oh, there you go.
You can't pick the Leafs.
Wait,
in
is your
the
sister's
playoffs.
husband play for the Bruins? Or
No,
is he
he's
just a fan?
a big time fan.
Okay, you say he had it in the family. I thought
No, I meant like fandom.
like, is he like the third line center? Like Phil? Like I want
No,
I wanna know.
fandom.
Okay, fair enough. All right, that's the Eastern Conference. In the Western Conference, the Central Division playoffs, the number 1 seed in the entire Western Conference, the Central Division champion Dallas Stars taking on the second wild card team, the defending Stanley Cup champion Vegas Golden Knights. I will start here. I am going to take the Golden Knights for the upset. I think the Stars are a fraud. Brendan.
Did they win the President's Cup this year?
No, the Rangers did.
Dang. All right, well, I'm still taking Vegas.
Spencer.
I'll take Vegas.
All right, clean sweep there. The other Central Division series, number 2 seed Winnipeg Jets and the number 3 seed Colorado Avalanche. Spencer.
I'm going to take the Avalanche just because I don't know a lot about them.
Okay, that's
and you're
fine.
a fan.
I literally could not name a single Winnipeg Jet. I will take Colorado.
I'm picking the Jets.
What?
I'm picking the Jets.
Emotional hedge?
A little bit. The Avs don't have the goaltending, man. Like they're gonna have to win every game 6-5, and that doesn't work in the playoffs. It's not good when they give your goalie a name that references how many goals per game he gives up, and that's what the Avalanche have. They call Alexander Georgiev Forgiev, as in 4 goals.
Not great.
Yeah, that's not the kind of nickname you want your goalie to have. So yeah, I just don't. Nathan McKinnon is going to win the Hart Trophy for MVP. They could outscore their way to the conference finals like the Oilers did 2 years ago when they ran into the Avalanche. But yeah, I'm hedging a little bit. But the Avs played so bad the last month of the year. I think the Jets win that series. The Pacific Division playoffs, the Vancouver Canucks won that division. They take on the top wildcard team, the Nashville Predators. I will go with the Red Hot Preds to pull the upset. What say you, Brendan?
Yeah, Nashville's playing really well recently. I do know that. I'll take Nashville.
Spencer.
Nashville's
all right. We're all on the big upset there. The other Pacific Division series, number 2 seed Edmonton Oilers, number 3 seed Los Angeles Kings. I'm going with the team Connor McDavid plays for. That's the Oilers, in case no one knows. Spencer.
Yes. You don't go against Connor McDavid.
Yeah, McDavid.
All right. So those are your first round playoff predictions. I really hope I'm wrong about at least one of them. And that is your playoff round.
Coming up next, we'll do a little Ask Me Anything here on 580 Sports Talk. If you've got a question for the whole group or just one of us, let us know on the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429, or you can drop it into the YouTube comment section as well. We'll also get to some Royals and Orioles, your text, your comments. It's all coming up on 580 Sports Talk. A couple quick things to touch on here before we get to our Ask Me Anything for today. One, Mark on YouTube with the most important comment of the day. I cannot join you guys in buying the Steelers or the Bills.
That's true. You are an owner of another team.
As an owner of an NFL franchise.
You would have to sell your stake of the Packers.
Which I am not going to do. So, unfortunately, you two are going to have to go on that train alone.
Okay.
Also, the last time Duke played a true road game that wasn't part of a conference challenge, so the ACC, Big Ten, ACC, SEC, was 2018.
Wow.
They played a February non-conference game at Madison Square Garden against St. John's, which only counts because St. John's plays one Madison Square Garden game every year.
Wasn't Mike Jarvis the head coach then?
I believe you are correct.
Yeah, didn't he have? I think he was close with Krzyzewski. Maybe I might be misremembering.
I believe you are correct because then they went to Durham the next year.
Yeah.
The year prior to that, they also played a game in Vegas against UNLV. I'm sure not at the Thomas and Mack Center. I'm sure they played somewhere else.
I don't know if T-Mobile Center would have been open by then. That might have been.
Maybe not.
Thomas and Mack's huge.
Yeah,
like Thomas and Mack seats 16,000. They've had NCAA tournament games there, so big enough arena for Duke to find it worth their while, get their share of the gate, I suppose.
They also played a game in Greens. I guess this is a neutral site game against Elon that year. Why would you do that? Why are you playing a neutral site game against Elon?
Well, he has a lot of money. Maybe he offered them all free Tesla. We had one of the questions.
It's
What's
in
your
Greensboro?
Favorite? Yeah.
North Carolina. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. It might be a state thing.
Maybe.
One of our AMA questions from the Top City Metal Supply text line was, what's your favorite dad joke? That just jumped up the list for
there
me.
You go.
Yeah, that's very high on my list.
That's a good one. By the way, Duke lost that game to St. John's, which is why they have not scheduled the true road game since.
Running scared.
All right, let's run through some of these. We got some really good questions here on the Top City Metal Supply text line. We'll roll with your dad joke answer there. That was from the 785. One for me from the 785. Packers record next year, 12-5.
Oh, we're drinking the green Kool-Aid.
I am drinking the green. I'm drinking the Jordan Love Kool-Aid. I also had a $25 free bet that went on Packers to win the Super Bowl, and I'm feeling okay about it.
All right,
I'm feeling okay about it. So yeah, 12-5 regular season. All right, next one, still on the Top City Metal Supply text line from the 785. It starts with a compliment. Always a good way to start.
Yeah.
Be very nice to us, and we'll get to your text. All three of you are very literate. Well, clearly not. All three of you are very literate and have broad vocabularies. Thank you.
Thanks.
What are your favorite novels and why?
I will start this off while you guys think. I don't read very much. If I do, it has a sports slant to it. So the most recent book that I've read is called Still Barking, Friendship, Brotherhood, and 25 Years of the Sports Junkies. It's a radio show in DC, a morning sports talk show.
It is very funny to be told you're very literate and then say, actually, I don't read.
Favorite novels. So yeah, like I'll admit a lot of the stuff I read is nonfiction. That's just my preference. I'm reading right now One Summer, America 1927 by Bill Bryson, who also wrote A Short History of Nearly Everything. It is a really fun read. A lot of stuff happened in 1927. Lindbergh's flight, Babe Ruth hit 60 dingers, Great Flood, and I'm only halfway through the book and we're still, grinding it, but it's really good. But as far as novels go, a couple that have stuck with me for a long time, I guess it's a cliche answer, but To Kill a Mockingbird is one of my favorites. And I really liked the nonfiction that Pat Conroy wrote, The Great Santini, which was almost not fiction. It was so loosely based on his life, and The Lords of Discipline as well.
I would go with, when I was a kid, I read so much. I read books. I mean, I would go through multiple a week. I've really cooled down. I have a bunch of sports slanted books to read. Number one for me, though, is Tom Sawyer. I've read Tom Sawyer probably more than any other book. I've read a lot of Mark Twain. I really enjoy Mark Twain and his wit. And it'll always be Tom Sawyer.
Also, I couldn't give you one favorite, but I've read a lot of Elmore Leonard's stuff, and he's another one of my favorite fiction authors. Very high on the list for me, Elmore Leonard.
Next one on the Top City Metal Supply text line. Have you ever seen the movie Heavy Metal?
Is that the parking lot movie? Or is
my answer is no. I have not seen the
Yeah,
film.
I would say no as well.
I guess, yeah, that's a pretty obvious answer. But no,
Yeah.
have not seen that one.
The Canadian adult animated science fantasy anthology film?
That Heavy Metal Alchemist?
No, no, that's a different thing. I believe.
We don't
As far
know.
as I'm aware.
None of us know.
John Candy was in this. I've never seen it. Eugene Levy was in it. Levy, who I do enjoy.
Yeah, a lot of
quite bit.
really funny people are in this.
I've never seen it though. I will put
No.
it on the list.
Yeah.
I've been told our next movie night at home is my choice, so I will put that one on the list. Next one for me, or to read. Pick the sport that if you could only follow one, what sport would it be? And making assumptions here. Dan, is it baseball? Brendan, college basketball, I presume. Spencer, what? What would yours be?
Hockey. Straight up. Love hockey.
Hockey. Okay, I would have thought NFL.
It's no, because of the dramatic years that Dan Snyder put me through.
Fair enough.
Fair.
I think the Capitals being so good shaped me differently. And I'm definitely sad that there's no the closest hockey here is in St. Louis
Yeah,
to go to a game.
that's fair.
Yeah.
You could go see a
The Wichita
non-NHL
Thunder?
game.
Yeah,
Yeah, down in
Wichita
Wichita.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
That was just like the most saddening thing that I wasn't going to be able to do.
All right, Peter.
Go to
the
an
finalist.
NHL game.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah.
Yours is baseball.
Yeah, it'd be baseball for me.
Mine would be the NFL. I would take pro football over college basketball. The three, I'm very blessed because the really four sports that we cover here the most are the four that I care about the most, which is college football and basketball, the NFL, and Major League Baseball. But yeah, I'd probably go pro football over college basketball. It's close, though. It's a very close one. That one from the 785. How about a couple from the YouTube comments today? Let's start with this one from Vance. Nacho cheese or ranch Doritos?
Ranch.
You jumped in before I could say if you prefer ranch. I'm calling an asylum. Ranch Doritos are not worth eating. They're not even. It's not that they're
Preach,
just
Brendan,
less good.
preach.
They're just not good. Period.
Wrong.
I don't really like Doritos. Like I wouldn't choose Doritos
Yeah.
as it is, but I would take nacho cheese.
Spicy.
I would as well.
The spicy nacho are quite good. My wife bought those by accident, and she doesn't love like spicy chips. So I've been eating those lately, and they're pretty good. Like I'm not anti the nacho cheese. I just think the Cool Ranch is my preference.
The last
am
time I
anti-Cool
had
Ranch.
Doritos was definitely like New Year's party.
Yeah, that is a very party food.
Yeah, like I don't.
We like to alternate. I have the same thing for lunch every day. I have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, some chips, and some fruit. I have that for lunch virtually every single day. And that has been my lunch virtually every day of my life since I was 6 years old. I love peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
I wish I could go that long eating something for the same amount of time, or for like something for lunch.
Well, the only reason I can do that is because it's peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, which is the perfect sandwich. And I have chips with it, and I like to alternate between like potato chips and like a Dorito. So right now I'm on Doritos, and I'll go back to potato chips next probably.
Honestly, I'm not a big chip guy.
I love chips.
Like I don't eat chips very often.
I've become a big tortilla chip guy.
Do you dip them in anything or just eat the chips?
Straight up corn chips.
I mean both.
All right, fair enough. That's salty.
A lot of salt.
Do you? Well, I see. Like I was gonna ask, do you have a drink with it? Most people drink that. Like I don't. I've had it today. Approximately 12 ounces of water. That's all I've consumed all day.
You are a bad teammate.
Yes,
I've filled this water up 3 times now,
I filled this up right before the show, up to 32 ounces. It is currently sitting right at 20.
and I did have a glass of milk this morning because it was gonna go bad, so I needed to pour it.
Vance says someone take me out to lunch for the love of God. I'm if I have lunch not out, which I will do from time to time, it is typically a PBJ. Also, Mark H asks which I prefer between chocolate and strawberry milk. Chocolate 10 out of 10.
Chocolate, yeah. I used to drink strawberry milk all the time as a kid, though. I don't think I could do it
My
now.
wife likes strawberry, but I like the chocolate milk.
Chalky milk is okay sometimes.
Another one here. How many siblings do you have?
I have one younger brother. He is 33 years old, and he lives in Denver with his wife and their 2 dogs.
I have one sister. She's married. She has a dog. She lives back in Virginia.
I've got 2 sisters.
She just got a new job.
Oh,
too.
good for her.
And her husband. just got-
Congratulations.
They got
to
2
them
new
both.
jobs over there that are they're living life great right now.
Love to hear that. Good for them. I have 2 sisters. I'm the middle child. My older sister's 6 years older. My younger sister's 2 years younger.
There you go.
Which is weird. I have a bunch of friends. Like one of my closest friends is 2 years younger than me, and me really close with me. My younger sister, like still a child as far as I'm concerned, even though she's about to turn, what will that be? 26 years old. No, 27. She's about to turn 27 next month. And I'm like, no, you're a small child.
No,
still.
my brother's
So am I a small child?
No, see, that's what I'm talking about. It's weird. It feels strange to me.
This would be a good one gotta go from the 785 back to the text line, the Top Email Supply text line. Brisket, pulled pork, or burnt ends?
Ooh. Okay.
Ooh, sorry. I just want to feel involved.
All right. I feel like I could, depending on mood, I could give a different explanation for any of them, which is the real cop-out here. Pulled pork is the most consistent. It's really hard to screw up pulled pork.
Yes.
I enjoy it quite a bit.
Mhm.
It's probably my most commonly ordered barbecue meat.
High floor.
Yes, very high floor. Maybe lower ceiling, high floor pick. Burnt ends are such a, at least where we are such a local regional specialty that I feel like if I'm going out to somewhere in Kansas City or I'm eating at Blind Tiger here in town or something, like, yeah, I'll do the burnt ends. That's a more specific kind of need. Whereas I think well done brisket is the best meat you can eat. Like a well done, like not like cooked well done, but like perfectly cooked brisket is about as good as you can do. The problem is very few places can do that.
I like it. I like chopped brisket more than I like the shaved brisket. Just as we get a text in that totally disagrees with me, that likes it better. Like, it's not that I don't like it sliced. I just happen to prefer it chopped because I like it on like a brisket sandwich. It can be really good. And I like chopped brisket on the sandwich. But my pick is burnt ends. 100%. Like, I like the other two very much. Burnt ends to me, double platinum.
I had someone in my Twitter mentions after I went to dinner with my wife. We went to Blind Tiger the other night, beefing with me because I did not get burnt ends when I was there.
You have to get the burnt ends there.
It was prime rib night.
Okay, a little bit more defensible. But the next time you go, you gotta do the burnt ends.
No,
I would.
That is the plan.
I would say, like, for my life, like, I'm just starting to get more into, like.
Yeah, you just got here.
No, like, I in life and getting food, I'm just more like branching out.
Okay.
Because I can afford more things than I could while I was in college.
But you just got to a place where you're adjacent to the Mecca of barbecue Kansas
That
City.
too.
Yes.
But like in my life, it's always been pulled pork. And then within the last 4 to 5 years, I've been a big brisket guy. And I want to try burnt ends.
Luckily for you, a lot of places locally where you can get good ones.
Yes.
It's a lot of wins.
We
We
will show you the way.
If you've got any other questions, send them our way. Top City Metal Supply text line number is 785-272-9429. You can also find us in the YouTube comments, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. We have to get to a quick break. We'll take any more questions, and we'll preview Royals-Orioles this weekend coming up on 580 Sports Talk. Jeffrey on YouTube says Orioles going to be a tough chance or a tough matchup. Good chance for the Royals to really test how much they have improved. We'll get to the weekend series coming up here in just a moment. Game 1 coming up tonight, 6:40 first pitch, 6 o'clock pregame here on 580 WIBW. Quick couple more AMA questions for us. One from YouTube. Mark asks, out of an earthquake, a tornado, a fire, or a flood, which disaster would you least want to be a part of?
You know, I've been in a small earthquake, and so I definitely know I don't want to be in a bigger one. I don't think I want to be in any of those,
Yes.
but man, I don't like fire. Like fire is very like the power. Like I saw Backdraft, so that's all I need to know about not wanting any part of fire.
Yeah. I have too been in a decently sized earthquake. I think it was like 2011 in DC area. It was pretty big. I had a broken leg at the time, and I was home alone at the time.
Ooh,
that probably didn't feel good.
And I fell down.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, I had a broken leg. It was not fun. And because of this was 15 years ago now, almost 12 years ago, the communications were like the cell phone towers like stopped for a little bit. So I was scared to death.
I would also pick fire. I want nothing to do with fire ever. I think we had one other. Pick one sport you can't watch. One of your favorite sports to watch, but you're told you can't watch it anymore. What would it be?
If the Avalanche or Nuggets are eliminated early from their respective playoffs, that sport. I'm never going to want to watch it again as long as I live if that happens.
Does it have to be a favorite sport?
Yes.
Dang. I would pick the NBA.
But
I guess if I had to pick something, it would be baseball.
I would have to go with college football, which is crazy because it might be my second favorite sport overall, period. But I'm keeping the NFL, and I'm not getting rid of college basketball or baseball, so I'll get rid of the redundancy.
I'd be tempted to give up baseball right this second because that's the sport my favorite team's the worst at. But
hey, but the local team's playing well.
Yes, the local 9 playing well.
The Royals versus the Orioles coming up this weekend. Alec Marsh on the bump tonight against Dean Kramer. Tomorrow, this is the main event. Cole Reagans versus Corbin Burns tomorrow at the K. Seth Lugo versus Cole Irvin coming up on Sunday. I'm really interested in seeing how this rotation can do a second time against Baltimore, which is a really good offense and some really hot hitters.
Because they did pitch well. It was Waka, Marsh, and Reagans in the first time around when they played up in Baltimore. Marsh pitched great, probably pitched the best of the three. So I'm fascinated tonight to see if maybe the Orioles have his number, seeing him a second time, or if he's able to make some adjustments and continue to keep them off balance. Reagans Burns is box office on Saturday.
Yes.
Like if I did not have an extremely vested interest in a playoff basketball game that night, that would be a hold my calls. I'm watching this pitching matchup kind of game. As it is, I'm probably going to have to DVR it.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah,
I'm excited for that.
That's big time. That's a big deal to get to see those guys square off at the K. And then, like I said, Kramer and Irvin have struggled early on this season. So there's a chance for the Royals to jump on some struggling pitchers, keep them struggling, and try and win this series. It'd be a big deal to win this series for the Royals.
I would really like to see the offense. I don't need 12 runs today, but this feels like the kind of game where the Royals should be able to put up a decent number of runs. A career fielding independent number for Kramer of 456. That's bad. That's really not good. He's even worse than that this year in a small sample at over 5. This is an opportunity for the Royals to, I think, put up a decent number of runs. Where many has he walked this year? He's not walking a lot of dudes, just 2 and 16 and a third innings. But he's given up over a base runner. What is it? 1.2 is the whip on the year for Kramer.
It means he's throwing a lot of hittable strikes. So jump on those pitches.
No, take advantage of it. Maybe this is the kind of game, this is the kind of matchup where Michael Garcia can snap out of it. What about a nice crisp 3 for 4?
I'd go for that.
For Garcia today.
Sign me up.
Yeah, I'd be all over that one. No, this is exciting. It's fun to have an early season series at the K for which there's some actual meaning to it behind, good players are coming to town. Like, no, good players are coming to town, and that means we're going to get good baseball.
Yeah.
That's the exciting part of this. Is the weather going to be good this weekend?
I don't think it's going to be awesome.
It's going to be chilly. Chilly 56 tomorrow here.
Yeah, it looks like, highs in the 50s and 60s all weekend. So
I'm bring a jacket.
Sunshine at least, but there's no rain in the forecast. But a little brisk. Should be good pitching conditions.
Perfect. Even better. Want a pitcher's duel, specifically Saturday.
Yeah, give me Reagans and Burns each working into the 7th in a 1-0 ball game. Real hoop.
Yeah, that's what I want. That's what I'm pulling
Yes.
for. We have to get to one final timeout. We'll come back. We'll wrap up this week of 580 Sports Talk with the final word. Time to wrap up this week of 580 Sports Talk. Let's get to a final word. Spencer, you are up first today.
It's the beginning of the hockey playoffs, one of my favorite times of year. And hopefully the Capitals can get game one going. They have a ridiculous stat. Somebody found this of the Capitals after Taylor Swift drops music. They're like 7-2-1 in the first games after album releases. So hopefully it's 8-2-1 at the end of Sunday. Also, did my taxes a week ago. Got the return today. Let's go.
Those are connected, right? Because that sounds like your return's going on Moneyline Caps.
Yes, 100%.
There you go.
That would be reckless of me.
It is. It is the start of the postseason for both the NHL and the NBA. Once again, I have a vested interest in two teams, the Denver teams in both postseasons. So I'm glad at least that these games on Saturday and Sunday are not super late start times, because typically the Western Conference games start late, which means I don't get a lot of sleep. So if you see me on the YouTube stream here the next couple of weeks and look, my eyelids are a little heavy and look like the bags under my eyes are a little more pronounced, that's just playoffs, baby.
Final word for me. Got to hear from Brett Veach earlier on today, Chiefs GM, and I am more convinced that the Chiefs are going to be moving all over the draft order this year. I think it matches up really well, the depth does, with what the Chiefs need. And if they're in a position where they can get good value later on, and why would you reach for a position that's not even a huge need? Sure, we'll move out, or sure, we'll move up to go get a guy we really want. I really do think the Chiefs are going to be pretty aggressive come next week for the draft. We'll be talking plenty of draft coming up on Monday. It'll be Mock Draft Monday. Matt Verderam will join us. We'll talk Royals, Orioles, and a whole bunch more. That's Monday from 2 until 6. Until then, for Dan Lucero, for Spencer Dupuis, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. Appreciate you for listening all week long right here on 580 WIBW and to 580 Sports Talk.